Went, Chris Dorner apparently taking somebody's white pickup truck and trying to flee the mountain community, heading down the 38, the back way, the less populated way, the way with less traffic. It would make sense if you were Chris Dorner trying to get away. He was engaged by San Bernardino County Sheriff's deputies in the Seven Oaks area, which is very close to Angeles Oaks, about 30 minutes outside of Big Bear. And there a firefight ensued, and we understand as of a few moments ago, one of those two deputies that was hit has died from his injuries.
That's right. This would now be the fourth person allegedly murdered by Dorner in this manhunt that has started since last Thursday. We also had a press conference at the top of the 3 o'clock hour with LAPD at the headquarters there. Commander Andrew Smith saying to Dorner if he is watching the news, which he possibly could very much be watching, that his message to him was this, quote, "Enough is enough. It is time to end this and end the bloodshed and surrender." And also the LAPD saying that they will stop, they will not stop until he is in custody. Now, there's also what we understand from Commander Andrew Smith that he said they're not positive if it is Dorner inside that cabin, but they're taking no chances, of course, and they won't be able to positively identify him until he is in custody.
It's a skilled individual, no doubt. There's been a lot of speculation about his potential, his arms, his training, obviously his whereabouts, but his skill set. And obviously to elude capture for 9 days now, those two in Irvine were murdered a week ago Sunday. And here we are 9 days on, and Chris Dorner is still nowhere to be found, though they believe they have him surrounded, a couple hundred officers there at that cabin in Seven Oaks just off Highway 38. They believe they have him surrounded at this point, but we have been ordered away with our helicopters. There's been a flight restriction up as high as 13,000 feet and a radius of 3 miles from their location. So anything you see from the air, what you're seeing at screen right at this point, was taken several hours ago. We were called away from that area sometime at the start of the 2 o'clock hour, so we haven't been able to get any live pictures out from Seven Oaks in some time. Obviously awaiting information through sources and through law enforcement as to what's happening there. But as we know it at this moment, Chris Dorner is still believed to be holed up in a cabin there in that Seven Oaks area.
And part of what law enforcement is doing, they've shut down and made checkpoints over at Highway 330, Highway 18, and Highway 38, where our Chip Yost was just reporting from. He's about 10 miles, well, a few miles up from where the actual checkpoint is, and further up that mountain. But again, Highway 330, 18, and 38, if you're heading in that direction, just know for sure that you're going to have your car checked. They are searching every single car, making sure that Dorner is not going to get away.
Yeah, there is no way into the mountain communities. Those three highways Cher mentioned are the only three ways you can get in: the 18 through the Lucerne Valley, the 330, the most traveled road. They're stopping you at Highland, which is essentially the bottom of the mountain. Basically, where the 330 meets the 210. You're not going up anywhere. You're not going anywhere near that forest. And any cars that are coming out, they are searching. They're stopping and searching the trunks. And talk about a nerve-wracking position for law enforcement, knowing that there's somebody potentially trying to sneak his way through there that has them in the crosshairs. A very difficult, a very tense situation, as Commander Smith with LAPD mentioned at his press briefing an hour ago. No one, certainly in their department, is going to stand down and rest or even blink until this individual is in custody.
You know, they've had over 1,000 tips that have come in, tips and clues. They're still working those as well, even as this situation goes on over there in Seven Oaks around this cabin. We also were able to speak with the owner of the cabin, who gave us an insight as to what it's like inside her cabin, and what, if Dorner is holed up and pinned in that cabin, what he is seeing from inside there. And apparently he has quite the lookout. It is full of glass. He can see everything, according to the owner, that is surrounding him. So at this point, we would think that he's the one who has the advantage right now, even though there possibly are some 200 SWAT officers surrounding that cabin.
And the stakes have gone ever higher. Just within the last half an hour, receiving word that a San Bernardino County Sheriff's deputy died of his gunshot wounds received, we believe, at the hands of Chris Dorner as he jumped out of that truck trying to get off the mountain. there began the gunfire between several deputies and who they believe to be Dorner. 2 deputies hit. One of them, the condition we don't know. We understand he's in surgery at this hour. The other deputy has died.
And it is so unfortunate that there has been more bloodshed in this situation. And we do want to now go to that moment in the press conference that was held over an hour ago at the LAPD headquarters. Here is Commander Andrew Smith giving Dorner this situation and asking him to please give up.
If he's watching this, a message for himself is enough is enough. It's time to turn yourself in. It's time to stop the bloodshed. It's time to let this event and let this incident be over.
And Commander, your first priority.
And that's just one of several statements released by Andy Smith as he briefed the media. Hundreds upon hundreds of officers headed in this direction. From what Commander Smith says, they're stationed at San Bernardino Airport awaiting further command from Sheriff McMahon of San Bernardino County, who's the lead in this particular manhunt at this point. So at this juncture, we do not believe LAPD resources have been called into action as some 200 officers surround that cabin there. This video shot a couple hours ago, just as Dorner, who we believe to be Dorner, made his escape, perhaps into that cabin. We don't know for sure. Authorities don't know for sure. At least they're not telling us.
Right now, we want to go to Dan McKernan, at Big Bear Lake Resort Association. Dan, thank you so much for joining us here on the KTLA News. What can you tell us about the situation from your vantage point right now?
Well, are you there?
Yes, we are here. Hi, Dan. Go ahead.
Okay, great. We are just seeing the same reports that you might be seeing.
Can you tell us about how tense the situation has been ever since the manhunt for Dorner has been in that area?
Well, it was the first day on Thursday. It was actually quite intense, and then it had really cooled down since then.
I mean, Dan, the belief from our understanding is that most people up in the Big Bear area thought that Dorner was gone, that he got away shortly after his truck was discovered on fire. I mean, it appeared as though that had materialized, at least in the eyes of many of the people up there in Big Bear.
Yeah, actually, most of the people here did not know if he was here or not because the police never really confirmed if he was here or not. So. We stuck with the police reports on that.
Yeah.
Dan, did you hear those shots fired earlier?
No, that was not in this area. From my understanding, the shots were not in our Big Bear area. It was closer to the Angeles Oaks areas where the shots were fired.
Yeah, the understanding is that the truck was stolen from, I guess, very near the golf course there, just to the west of the golf course, where Clubview essentially runs into 2N10, very, very close to where his truck was found on fire. But you kind of get the sense that some people were staying away over the weekend, or did you get a sense that by Saturday people had decided that it was safe enough to come on up, and you felt a little bit of weekend travel through your town?
Yeah, we had a very strong police presence here over the weekend, and so the whole community and our visitors felt safe because of that. We didn't really find we were too affected by the situation. In fact, the mountains were actually up over the weekend on Saturday and Sunday.
Do you have any information by any chance, Dan, about the schools on lockdown in Big Bear?
Gosh, the last I heard, this is what I've heard. I don't know if this is confirmed, but that parents could pick up their kids. But I'm not 100% on that.
You know, Dan, usually the big story that you all talk about in your town is when a fire comes through, and this is a firestorm of a different sort that obviously caught most people up there off guard. It's not something you expect in that area of Big Bear Lake. You know, talk about your level of comfort living up there, and you know, your thoughts about what's just gone on.
Well, you know, as a Big Bear resident, we are a little tough-skinned when it comes to situations, and So we've lived through many, and we know how to get by.
All right, Dan McKernan, we do appreciate your time right now joining us. He's from the Big Bear Lake Resort Association, giving us a little insight as to what it's been like for just the residents up there ever since this manhunt has been going on since Thursday.
And the showdown apparently has moved on from the Big Bear area into the Seven Oaks area along Highway 38 as you're leaving Big Bear. This is still north of Mount San Gorgonio, so he's essentially in a valley that's bordered by San Gorgonio to the south and essentially the south side of Bear Mountain to the north. It's a massive canyon, a very scenic area, but one with very few people. And even fewer people at this hour as the standoff continues. We await an update on what's happening in the Seven Oaks area. These aerial images, again, it bears repeating, are from a few hours ago. There has been a temporary flight restriction in the area as ordered by the San Bernardino County Sheriff McMahon as they plan their next move to try and bring this individual, Chris Dorner, into custody. So the aerials that you see are from a couple hours ago. Nothing live has been transmitted out of there in some time. And the closest that we're able to get at this point is the Mentone area, which is that Highway 38 right as you come off the mountain. But that's still a good 20-minute drive from the area where all the action is at this point.
Now, we do have some new video that KTLA has obtained of the Medi helicopter that was on its way to Loma Linda, we believe carrying one of the deputies that was shot earlier. Again, there were two deputies that were shot in a shootout with who we believe is Dorner in the Seven Oaks area, and they were airlifted to Loma Linda. Unfortunately, one of those deputies, we have confirmed with our partners over at the LA Times, has died. So again, this new video coming in from the Medi helicopter that was carrying one of those deputies that went to Loma Linda University Medical Center. Again, one of those deputies has died.
There have been reports, and obviously nothing is confirmed, but there's a reporter with KFI who is talking about the potential that Dorner may have gotten out of the area. We are not reporting that. They haven't even confirmed it, but it's a conversation that's happening among deputies. A level of concern that maybe Chris Dorner got away by stealing another vehicle and perhaps even a sheriff's patrol car. We have not confirmed that. We're not reporting that. That's a conversation that's happening out there right now. And until we hear otherwise, we're going to leave it at that. But the conversations are swirling. And Chip mentioned deputies racing in the opposite direction of the scene, down the mountain. And their reporting indicated that that might have something to do with that. Maybe it does. Maybe it, as you mentioned, had to do with the gravely wounded officer who we now know has died, and maybe they were headed to the hospital.
Yeah. Well, we also know that there are two other officers that were hit as well that are on their way to the hospital, so that could have been part of that as well. But you know, the conversations that have been swirling. I mean, this is not just something that is happening here in Southern California. It's something that the nation has been talking about. It becoming an international manhunt. Last night, even us reporting that the motel in Tijuana was raided because of a possible Dorner sighting there, and the clues that that Chris Dorner has left in the last few days, from going to a sports chalet and getting his scuba tanks filled, to leaving his driver's license and IDs in San Diego, to trying to steal a boat in a marina in that yacht club in the San Diego area, and then coming up to this area, Big Bear, and now Seven Oaks. I mean, it has really been one of those manhunts that are unprecedented. We also heard yesterday Charlie Beck saying that over 1,000 of his officers have been directed in this manhunt, and that there's never been something that the department has seen to this magnitude. Consider
the magnitude of that. Roughly 10,000 officers in the LAPD, 1/10 of the entire force dedicated to this manhunt. What does that tell you? It tells you a lot. The numbers tell you a lot. And when these officers try and predict the behavior of somebody like Chris Dorner, that oftentimes plays to their advantage. They have the experts who have tracked people like this for a living for 20, 30, 40 years and can oftentimes predict their movements, to a degree such that it gives them an advantage. But in this case, to this point, to our knowledge, they've had a very difficult time predicting his behavior because it hasn't made much sense from what we know. Piecing the puzzle together, you hear about a man trying to steal a boat in Point Loma down in San Diego. You hear about now the scuba gear that he apparently bought a few days, I believe it was, before those Irvine murders in Redondo Beach. He bought that scuba gear. All of these things, and you take all that information and you try and put something together that would suggest, well, maybe he's up to X, Y, or Z. But from what we're hearing, they're having a very difficult time piecing anything together based on his behavior.
They certainly are, and we are doing our best as well to keep on piecing it together for you. In the meantime, we want to go to the KTLA 5 newsroom where Glenn Walker has been getting new information for us. Glenn, what can you tell us?
Sharon, Micah, this coming in from our partners at the LA Times. They are now reporting that Dorner allegedly broke into a cabin days ago, probably on Thursday, up in the San Bernardino Mountains, tied up the couple inside, and has been holding them hostage until he left this morning. Dorner then allegedly was spotted by state fish and wildlife officers in that white pickup truck. When they attempted to stop him, Dorner crashed the truck during a chase, exchanged gunfire with the officers, and then fled into the other cabin where he apparently is now. The source telling the LA Times that, as we have reported, one deputy was hit as Dorner fired out of the cabin. A second was injured when Dorner exited the back of the cabin, deployed a smoke bomb, and then opened fire again in an apparent attempt to flee. But Dorner was driven back inside the cabin. Of course, we know that one of those San Bernardino County Sheriff deputies has now passed away. The other one still being treated at the hospital. And, of course, the reports we got from Liberty Channel a little bit later that there's a possibility that 2 more deputies have also been hit in an exchange of gunfire with Dorner. So apparently what we're learning is Thursday, as that massive manhunt began, he was hiding in somebody's cabin and holding 2 people who lived there hostage until he tried to make an escape this morning.
And that would add another remarkable layer to this manhunt and investigation if that holds true. He was believed to have stolen that pickup truck today in the Clubview Drive area, which is less than a half a mile from where his truck was found burning on 210. Essentially, Clubview turns into that fire road. All of this happening in that same area of Big Bear, where there are only a couple hundred cabins. And as we know, that massive search fanned out through what we were told was 400 or 500 cabins. He was likely in that area. And maybe, just maybe, the cabin he was in holding those people hostage was a cabin that was looked at by the officials, and as they moved on, and you remember them saying, if there's no sign of forced entry, we'll probably continue on. That leads you to wonder if maybe, just maybe, he was in that search perimeter and they walked right past the cabin where he was holding 2 people hostage.
It is, like you said, just another layer to this so complicated story. And Glenn telling us from the newsroom again that our partners at the LA Times are reporting that he tied up a couple inside a cabin since Thursday when this manhunt began. We are also looking at this video that we've been replaying for you over and over again of this smoke. This was shortly after, around the time of the shootout of that cabin. Glenn, did you say, I think I missed it, did you say that Dorner deployed the smoke bomb, or was it the sheriff's deputies? Actually,
it was both. Here's the situation. Dorner put out a smoke bomb, and that's when he actually shot one of the deputies. A little bit later, after the deputies were injured, and I'm assuming this is probably the one that was tossed out by law enforcement, they put out their own smoke bomb to give themselves cover so they could get to the deputy and pull him out of harm's way. So Dorner throwing a smoke bomb, trying to escape when he shot one of the deputies, and then law enforcement tossing a smoke bomb to recover that deputy after he'd been shot.
Now, we want to remember again, this is an ex-LAPD cop, and during one of the press conference that Chief Charlie Beck held at the very beginning of this manhunt is that, you know, he is trained by us. That is what the Chief Charlie Beck said. So it's no surprise that you hear that he's throwing the smoke bomb and then law enforcement, of course, doing the same in retaliation, but really just to save their own. You hear stories of manhunts all the time, obviously not to this scale, but rarely do you see a subject that is the hunted with the same skill set as those doing the hunting. It just adds a layer of complexity that is remarkable. All right, we want to go to Tim Lynn right now. We've got some breaking news of some huge plume of smoke in the area. Tim, tell us what's going on.
Oh, hey, Cher. We just came on scene here. We're working our way up into the area here. We're respecting the law enforcement's wishes to stay outside of the area. But you can see right there, we're getting reports that the cabin that they suspect that the Dorner is in is fully engulfed in flames. You can see the smoke coming up out of the tree line there. This is about as close as we can get. They have a big TFR, or temporary flight restriction, up here to protect the SWAT officers who are on the ground working this area. But you can see it's on fire. You see the smoke coming up out of the bushes there, or out of the trees right there. So I don't know the information whether he set it on fire, the SWAT team set it on fire, or who did. But right now we're getting information that it is on fire, and you can see it evidenced by the plume of smoke coming out from the area right there on 7 Oaks Drive, in that area along the just above the 338 here in the valley in Angeles Oaks. So yeah, we're keeping an eye on it from way outside the TFR. Keep an eye as best we can from our vantage point, and FXTV5 has you. And so we're kind of just keep peeking up the way here. I'm telling you, I've never seen a turnout by LA County, LA City Fire, LA County Fire. We were just at the base at San Bernardino, and that's the latest we sent down to you.
And interrupt you for a moment, Tim, and go to this press conference. There's Sheriff McMahon outside Loma Linda, we believe, with an update. Let's listen live.
Injuries. I'll take a couple of quick questions.
Anything you could tell us about the other deputy that was brought here? And is it indeed another San Bernardino County Sheriff's deputy?
Yes, they're both San Bernardino County Sheriff's deputies.
And his condition?
He's in surgery, but he should be fine.
Sheriff, I was told by a source that that deputy was shot in the face. Can you?
I'm not going to comment on where his injuries are.
So were they aware that it might have been Dorner in the stolen car when they, I guess trying to pull him over or something?
Certainly that information was made aware to the deputies that the suspect that stole the vehicle matched the description. He crashed the car and then took off into the forest.
Anything you could tell us about the deceased deputy, number of years in service, marriage?
No, I'm not going to comment on any of that. We're still doing some investigation and notifying family members. Thank you.
Sheriff, go ahead. As you can imagine, the sheriff would like to get back into the families in the hospital. Is there any other questions I can try to answer for you?
Where the deputy passed away here in the hospital?
Can you get closer to the mic?
No information regarding the deputies is being released at this time.
Jody, the two deputies that were injured, were they a part of the gunfight, or, did they exchange fire with the suspect?
That is still remains under investigation.
What can you tell us about the suspect? Here at the hospital now?
Family members have been notified, yes.
Jody, this is early, but do you guys know much in terms of how much gun power he had in this gun battle?
No, I don't. As you know, the incident is still unfolding at this time.
What can you tell us about what's going on right now? We were hearing that the home that he's in or holed up in is on fire. Can you give us more than that?
I'm sorry, I'm here with you guys. I'm not able to see what's happening actually out there at the scene. I understand, as I said, that the incident is still currently unfolding at this time.
Can you just tell us about the presence here at the hospital? Obviously a large presence of sheriff's deputies. Is no one being allowed in the area?
As far as the hospital is concerned, yes, there's a large presence of law enforcement. Law enforcement is a very close-knit family. All law enforcement agencies is a brotherhood, so this is a very difficult day, again, for law enforcement.
LAPD is offering you...
Yes.
LAPD is offering you aid. How will they play into all of this?
We have been offered assistance by all surrounding law enforcement law enforcement. As I said, law enforcement is one big family. They take care of each other. LAPD is, yes, here, of course. We're being surrounded by law enforcement.
What about up at the scene in Big Bear? Is LAPD involved there?
Yes, LAPD, along with surrounding cities, is also a part of the incident on Highway 38.
Can you tell us the age of the deputies?
There will be no information released at this time regarding the deputies.
Is that because all family has not been notified yet?
That's because we're not releasing any information at this time about any of the deputies.
In terms of protocol.
Okay, thank you guys for
Live press conference. That was Jody Miller, a spokesperson for San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, and preceding her was Sheriff McMahon, and essentially he came out to announce that one of his deputies has died from his gunshot wound suffered, they believe, at the hands of Dorner. And the development within the last couple of minutes. We're taking you live now to the Seven Oaks area, and what it appears that we're looking at is the cabin that's on fire. We can't confirm that. Tim Lynn is in Sky 5. Tim, I know your distance impairs your ability to see what it is that's burning. From your vantage point, can you tell if that's a roof? I can't see it from what I'm looking at.
You have the shot that we do here. We're looking down in there, and it looks like it's in that set of cabins that they were surrounding. That I can tell. You see, that's a CHP airplane going in there, so that's the area of operation that they're working on. And we're hearing the chatter from the aircraft circling that area. But not sure if it's the cabin he was in or exactly what, but looking at the type of smoke that's coming up, it does look like some type of house fire. And from the size of the flames from here, 6 miles away, that's definitely looks like a cabin going, and that's the information we heard just a little earlier here, that it went on fire. And as I was saying earlier, we're not sure if it was set on fire by the suspect or by the SWAT teams that were surrounding it. Sometimes when they use incendiary gas grenades, it will get in there and set it on fire. But right now, we're just seeing this large plume of smoke coming up out of the area where he was last seen and where they are basing pretty much most of their operations up here off of the 38 on Angeles, up Seven Oaks Road, up in the Angeles Oaks area. But yeah, this has been a very tense time for the law enforcement up here in the valley, trying to take care of their own, get their help to their own, get them out, get them medical aid, and now the process of getting in there and getting this guy pinned down and in custody before nightfall falls up here, because once night comes in, it's going to be very, very dark and very, very tough for them to work this area, as well as law enforcement, and as far as for law enforcement activity that goes on up here. So we're working the area, just keeping an eye on what's going on up here, trying to stay outside of their working area. We had a little deal. I talked to the officers at the San Bernardino Airport. We assured them that we're doing everything we can to protect their safety on the perimeter as they search for this very dangerous suspect up here along 38. But we're making a turn back around, and you'll see 5's coming back around to the north. And so, just doing their best to keep an eye on this, get this guy pinned down, and then go ahead and take him into custody. But it's very, very dangerous for the officers down here, especially not knowing exactly where he's at. And if we get information, 11-5's passing you, and keeping an eye on this thing here, figuring out exactly where he's at, just south of you, and just exactly seeing what this guy is, and then really trying to pin him down because of his training, his military training, his police training. They're up against a very qualified adversary, and it's going to be a hunt up here. But right now, this cabin being on fire, like I said, could have been set on fire by him or by gas grenades going in to flush him out. But they are taking no chances with him. There is an army of officers up here searching this area, and a backup squadron, or I want to say battalion, down at San Bernardino Airport standing by to come up here and take care of this guy that they've been hunting for since Super Bowl Sunday. So it's really been stressful for the officers. Speaking to my friends who are in law enforcement, some of the officers that I do know, it's been very, very stressful for them on the streets, not knowing where this guy was and where he may hit next. And the Riverside officer that died just after he escaped from the area on the 15 there, not knowing exactly what was going on, just to be ambushed by this guy. All officers had that on their mind this whole time. And as a former law enforcement officer, I really hope that these people, or this guy, is taken into custody today, because I really have a heartfelt sadness for the loss of the officers today, as well as the Riverside officer, and then these officers here having to put their lives in harm's way to take this guy into custody. So let me send it back down to you so I can talk to the other media helicopters that are up here, and I'll get right back with you.
Understood. Tim Lynn, we're gonna stay with that picture and bring in former FBI agent Steve Moore with us here on set. Steve, what do you make of the developments and the proximity to Sunset?
I think this is probably too early for them to have established, planned, and conducted any kind of assault. I really do not see any indication that that was as a result of any law enforcement action. My blink on this is that this is kind of a David Koresh, Branch Davidian way out. It's
Do you believe that maybe perhaps that Dorner, who we believe is holed up in there, set this house on fire, the cabin that he's been holed up in, that we believe on fire himself, in a suicide attempt?
If that is the cabin he's in, and he is in there, I would be surprised if law enforcement had enough time to set up, practice, and plan an assault into a building which has multiple floors. As a former SWAT operator, that's going to pose a massive difficulty for you, and really set up a perimeter. You don't have, yes, it's sunset but coming up, but you can put lights on the house, and you don't have to hit it now. I mean, you know where he is.
So does the advantage become in the hands of SWAT once the lights are on that house and it's dark? I mean, he can't, if you've got a bunch of 1Ks shining in the house,
right,
he's going to see nothing but light and very little movement.
That is an advantage, but there is no way he's getting out of that place without his hands up or horizontal. So the issue for him is he has no tactical advantage, except that they can't get in there and get him without a high risk of casualties. So there is no hurry to go into that place. The one thing that once you get him holed up in a place like this, your plan changes. You say, now time is on our side, and we wait him out. I mean, it's the same thing with the little boy in Alabama, where they waited for days. There is no exigency to go in tonight.
So you don't think that the proximity to sunset would play to that strategy? Now, knowing that they believe they've had him surrounded for more than 2 hours, that to you isn't a sufficient amount of time to make a move like this?
I would be astounded if they came up with a planned, capable, backstopped SWAT assault in 2 hours to hit a building like that size. The first thing I would, everybody plans differently, but from where I am with the FBI, we would say, I've been on things where we've got a barricaded subject inside a cabin. It was before I was on SWAT, but I've seen how the FBI dealt with it. And you say, we've got time. Why rush in and possibly lose an agent to get him today instead of tomorrow? Yeah. Because every day that he doesn't come out, he's more and more tired. They're not.
Yeah, and they've already lost, San Bernardino Sheriff's Department already lost one deputy in the firefight, who we believe is Dorner, earlier this afternoon. And we also know from his manifesto that was published that he said he will probably not live to see his name cleared for the vendetta of these revenge killings, if you will. He
could live forever and never see his name cleared.
Yes, but he also said that he would
right.
die for it. Yeah. In fact,
and he will.
It's clear how this is going to end. Yes. I think.
Well, I think it may be ending right now.
Yeah. What do you make of his pattern of behavior, if you want to call it that? I mean, you want to try and predict to some degree where he might go next. You've been following this as closely as we have. What are you thinking to yourself when you hear all these nuggets that are coming out about seen here, seen there? Do you make something of that?
This is to be expected. When we have these kind of things, you're going to have sightings everywhere. Yeah. But there's a massive duality with these people.
We have to go to Tim Lynn right now in Sky 5. We understand, Tim, that SWAT has entered the home.
We don't know that, and we've just been ordered by the San Bernardino County Sheriffs to back out our shot here, so we're going to go wide in the utmost of caution for those officers on the ground. So that's the shot we're going to have to give you from now on. We don't want to jeopardize them from here. Apparently they are very, very cautious of what we're showing here, and I don't blame them one bit. We don't know where he is, what he's doing, so they've asked us to back off our shot, so we have, in all courtesy to the law enforcement up here. So there we have it. And it's an active scene out here. The best I can see from here, from 11,000 feet, 7 miles away from it. the fire is continuing to burn there. Obviously, they're not going in to try to knock it down. And as your FBI spokesman was talking about, or retired spokesman, yeah, time is on their side right now. They have the night vision. They have the ability to get in there and light this place up if needed. But you know, the daylight is always good for them as far as air support, things of that sort, because it is very, very dark up here for helicopter operations. They will go on what they call NVGs, or night vision goggles, to work this area. But yeah, it's daylight is your friend at one point and it's your foe at another. So they're going to do all their planning, all their training that they've had in custody here, hopefully in the Angeles Oaks, Seven Hills area.
All right, Tim Lynn with us. Yeah, we're gonna continue to hold your shot, Tim, and bring in Andrew Blankstein from the LA Times, who's been covering this story from the very beginning. Andrew, thanks for taking the time to come on the air with us. What can you tell us from your sources on what's happening on the ground there in Seven Oaks?
Well, all we know generally is there's a tactical operation that's underway in the Seven Oaks area, and at this point, what you're probably seeing is smoke from some kind of tear gas that was fired that possibly ignited. And there are times, and it depends on what kind of operation and the circumstances, and nobody's saying specifically what it is, but there's hot gas and cold gas, and hot gas ignites after it's been fired into an area to try to flush somebody out. And it could be what we're seeing, when we're certainly seeing some kind of after effect of that. And now it's kind of a wait and see. Everything that I've heard is that law enforcement authorities believe that Mr. Dorner is in the cabin where this was fired into. So again, they're not getting into too much specifics, and they have daylight kind of dwindling now, and so we're kind of waiting to see what the next step is here. Andrew? And the question is, when are they going to approach the cabin? And the other question.
Andrew, I just want you to reiterate that again, that law enforcement did shoot into the cabin. Is that what you're saying?
No, this is what people are saying, that some kind of gas, tear gas, was used based on kind of the after effects, where we see the smoke and the flames. That can be kind of the result of this. Precisely, it's hard to say for sure, but generally speaking, again, from what my sources are saying about that some kind of tear gas was used, this looks to be what we're kind of the smoke and flame is a kind of could be a result of that.
And that jives with what Steve Moore is saying here too, that it would likely be far too early to see a fire intentionally set on that cabin. So this would be an inadvertent after effect, essentially, is what you're hearing from your sources.
Right, exactly. And again, because they stress that there's not a lot of details, and it's kind of a tactical operation that's still in full swing, and we still don't know kind of what's happened, and whether he was still in there when this fire started, whether he was out of there, we just don't know, and they're going to lock down communications for a while until I think they find out for sure.
Yeah, they're not only locking down communications, they're locking down, of course, the entire area, from schools to highways, because if perhaps, I mean, there's so many scenarios that have come out when it comes to this manhunt, Steve, that, people have been talking about for the last few days. And at this point now, the scenario could very well be that Dorner set the cabin on fire and escaped again.
It could be that, or they could have simply been firing tear gas in there without an intent to enter the location. I still believe that it would have been a very hazardous operation to enter the building at this point. They may have been putting gas into the home when this happened, or it could be his way out.
Yeah, it's again too early to tell. A lot of speculating going on at this point. We have a live picture, which is something more than we've had for the last several hours. You've been seeing aerial videotape for the last several hours, obviously much closer than this. This is your live picture from 7 miles away, a temporary flight restriction as this operation is in full swing. But you heard from Andrew Blankstein and his sources that they are fairly confident that Dorner is inside that cabin. And Tim Lynn joins us once again aboard Sky 5 with his vantage point. Tim?
Yeah, it's what you're seeing is the smoke is starting to dissipate here as it burns down, and I can see the smoke is just slowly going softer and softer. So probably all the fuel that it had is starting to burn away, and the fire is starting to die down. I didn't see any of the telltale white smoke come up that you would see with a firefighting operation. So I got a feeling it's just burning itself out. And like I said, we're keeping our shot wide out of respect for the law enforcement officers that are down there trying to do their job. And they have come on our frequencies and asked us to not show anything down there. So that's what you're seeing. But going back and forth about the, as I said earlier, about the tear gas, if they fired tear gas in there and it was the incendiary type, yeah, it possibly could have set a fire. But then again, we've had suspects on situations that have set the location on fire themselves in their attempt to divert the officers away and possibly make an escape. But I tell you, just from listening to the officers that are up here and the manpower they have up there, he is completely surrounded. If he is in that cabin, he is not going to get out. And there's no way that if he's in that area that he's going to come off. So right now they're just taking their time, setting up their operations. They have plenty of officers up here to relieve if it goes long term on this, and they'll do what they need to do to get him out. But right now the sun is still setting off in the west, and we're going to have about, I'd say probably about 2 hours of sunlight left up here. But you can see that as we get a little more of a line of sight on it, you see the smoke, it turns a little bit blacker now, so it might have got just a little bit more energy down there, a little more fuel to burn. So you can see right there turning very, very black now, and it could be just a camera angle for us that we had. But right now you can see the sheriff's helicopter overhead providing air support for them. They also have airplanes overhead, and every bit of resources that they have with the LA City, County, San Bernardino County, Riverside is up here to try to take this Christopher Dorner into custody and to bring this couple of weeks of terror just under control and out of our minds, because this has been unbelievable as far as the law enforcement side is concerned that they've been dealing with this. So let me send it back to you in the studio for just a few minutes.
All right, Tim Lynn for us in Sky 5. Again, live pictures incredible pictures from this incredible manhunt, something that we've never seen before of its like. And we believe, again, that the cabin that Dorner has been holed up in is on fire, obviously there with the black smoke coming on. And of course, law enforcement doing whatever they can to make sure that if by any chance he was able to get out of that area, that they would stop him through checkpoints. Let's go live now to KTLA's Chip Yost. He's at one of those checkpoints, Highway 38, with more information on how that's going on that point. Chip.
Yeah, we're here at Bryant Street. This is as far as they're letting the media right now. You can see the large police presence here blocking off the road as all this activity you're describing is going on. We're going to bring in Jacob Kaiser right now. He lives up near this direction. You drive past this area a lot. Kind of give us the lay of the land up there. What's it like? Is this an area that's easily accessible?
So going up there from here, at least, you kind of go in some no area. It's just like a nice ridge on one side and a cliff on the other side. And then you get up towards like Angeles Oaks and you'll start to get like cabins, but a lot of them are vacation homes, and it's just kind of scattered throughout the woods up there. And so
And we saw this large-scale search, over the last week up in this area. But you were saying, we were talking a little earlier, there are so many cabins up there, and a lot of them abandoned. It's not realistic. They could have checked every cabin from what you were saying.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see how they could. I didn't see a whole lot of police after a couple of days. But yeah, a lot of them are vacation homes, and so a lot of people aren't up there right now.
And in that immediate area, kind of near Glass Road, where this is taking place, they have a lot of full-time residents in that immediate area right there, or is that also one of the vacation areas?
I'm not sure. From what I understand, it's kind of a little bit of both, kind of all over the place. So like, you might have a section where there's some full-time residentials, but then a good amount of vacation homes kind of intermixed in there. So,
and we've been talking about these roadblocks. How far from this area do you live, and what were you told when you were trying to make your way up the road?
I live about 4 or 5 miles maybe from it. And so far the only roadblock we encountered was the one right here where they were checking vehicles coming down. But other than that, I mean, there wasn't a whole lot. There's some police up farther. But other than that, not a whole lot.
Okay, and we're going to break away for a moment. We hear some sirens coming up the street here, actually a fire truck, and we've been describing those flames up the hill. There you go. There's a fire truck from the San Bernardino County Fire Department making its way up the hill. We can only assume to that fire that you've been describing from Tim Lynn up in Sky 5 HD. But Jacob, I guess, so what you're saying, it's hard to tell how many people may have been in harm's way, I guess, from all those different bullets flying and whatnot. Have you heard from any of your friends or colleagues that live up that way with you? Have they been evacuated, anything like that?
As far as I know, everybody where we live is just kind of staying indoors, kind of locked up. I couldn't tell you the extent of it. I've been down here all day, but it sounds like everybody I know is safe in a different location, kind of a little bit away from it, so they're not really too concerned at this point. And I know there's a large police presence all the way up.
Jacob, thanks very much for giving us that info. But as you heard, it's somewhat of a remote area. Not sure how many people are in the immediate area, but we can probably assume they evacuated anyone they did find immediately around there. We'll send it back to you guys.
All right, Chip Yost for us at the checkpoint along the 38. And to pick up on something we just saw live here, Steve Moore sitting with us, former FBI. Fire truck that just went lights and sirens past Chip toward the Seven Oaks area. What does that mean to you, Steve?
Well, I know when there's a barricaded subject and he can reach out and touch fire trucks a long way away, ambulances, whatever, they are not going to be allowed in the immediate vicinity. The fact that they're sending that truck up indicates that it is either in their judgment safe for it to come up or safe to at least get close, that they are approaching a time where they think that it might be safe to get that truck in there. And they want to put this fire out, not just for the fire purposes, but they want to get in there and determine whether this has been,
you say, as soon as they can get into the burned out wreckage? Because
as Cher said, if he set this thing on fire as a diversion and somehow got into the woods, you know, I've seen that happen. They need to know for sure whether the search is over.
Something that we're all waiting for, and we've been waiting for since Thursday when this manhunt began. You know, it really is, as we've been talking about, an unprecedented manhunt that we've never seen anything like it. And the layers, Micah, that you were saying earlier, just adding yet another layer to the intense manhunt that has been going on since Thursday. You know, and I think that at one point or another, we all kind of maybe perhaps believed that he wasn't even in the Big Bear area when they had called off the search for the evening on Friday and decided they were going to resume on Saturday due to the snow.
I think probably by this morning before he was sighted, just about every law enforcement officer had the belief that he wasn't there. They had only 25 law enforcement there, is my understanding this morning. So the belief had to be that it was a mop-up action, that he had gotten out.
Yeah, we have a source inside this this area that's been cordoned off very, very close to this standoff that is sending word that the officers in that area are calling this Dorner's last stand. If that gives you any indication as to their belief that he is in fact in there, and that's what all of Southern California, perhaps much of the country, is waiting to hear, that this Chris Dorner is either in custody or deceased. We have yet to hear either of those in confirmation, and so we continue to stand. What officers on scene are calling it Dorner's last stand has proven deadly. Once again, as we've been reporting, another sheriff's deputy, San Bernardino County, was killed in a firefight with a man they believe to be Dorner just a few hours ago. And Stephen Chase is at Loma Linda Medical Center now with an update from that vantage point where Sheriff McMahon came out just a few moments ago.
Actually, for that press conference,
You can go to me if you want. I'll set it up. Yeah.
All right, we thought it was just about to start there, Micah. My apologies, because of course there are numerous press conferences that we are awaiting. One, of course, where Stephen Chase is standing by over at Loma Linda. This over at, as well, in Mentone, where Chip Yost has been standing by. Let's listen in.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Here's Garcia.
Hey guys, we're about to hear an update from the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department. Here we go.
Guys, we're just about to do this. Here we go.
I'm Cindy Bachman, Public Information Officer with the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department. As you know, we still have an active scene here in the Angeles Oaks area. There's a subject barricaded in a cabin. And at this time, that cabin is on fire. As far as our deputy sheriffs that were injured during the firefight, one of our deputy sheriffs was pronounced dead when he arrived at the hospital, and the second deputy is in surgery now and is expected to survive.
Can you describe how this firefight happened?
I can. I know that the subject stole a vehicle from the Big Bear area. He fled on foot not far from this cabin that he's in now. When he barricaded himself in the cabin, there was gunfire exchanged between the deputies, who were the first responders, and the suspect. The suspect has been described as looking similar to Christopher Dorner, and we have reason to believe that it is him. That is unconfirmed at this time because we have not had any contact with him except for the deputies that were engaged in gunfire with him.
Cindy, how did this fire start?
More about the fire.
I can't talk to you about the fire. I just received information when I got here that the cabin was on fire.
Do you know how the lights going in, Cindy? Are you
We
guys
don't
planning
know
on
if
a long
he's
night?
inside. The cabin is on fire now. That's all I can tell you right
Are you
now.
planning on a long night, Cindy? We saw the lights coming in.
Of course, we are planning on a long night. It's an active crime scene. If this is Christopher Dorner here, he's now responsible for the murder of 4 people and attempt murder of 3 others.
And we're hearing reports of a couple that was held
The
hostage.
entire area is surrounded by law enforcement personnel. As you know, there's been law enforcement here in the mountain communities from across Southern California, including the FBI, the U.S. Marshals. We have plenty of air support, and we need to let them do their jobs and bring this incident to a safe ending.
Was there a couple that was held hostage?
What kind of firepower?
How much personnel is up there?
I don't know how much personnel
fire
is there.
department's not allowed to tackle the fire yet because they're not sure it's clear?
Correct. If there is someone inside the house that is armed and that has already killed one of our deputy sheriffs, they're not going to allow anyone to go near the fire at this point.
The two individuals were held.
Inside the cabin.
I'm sorry?
Was there any communication at all of any type with?
I'm not aware of any communication with the subject inside.
The two individuals that were held.
Hostages in the cabin?
No, I'm not aware of any hostages.
Were there
in the
hostages
cabin.
held earlier?
I'm not aware of any hostage situation.
The 2 individuals that were held by him that ended up calling, were they harmed in any way? Who were they? How did they get out of this thing?
The victims of the car theft, I know the car was stolen from their home, but I don't know how the incident unfolded at their home. As far as I know, there were no injuries to those people, but after he fled the scene and then was engaged in a firefight with our deputies, what happened at the house wasn't that important after I knew that they were not
Has he been staying at that house for the past few days? As far as you know, we heard reports he may have been holding this couple hostage for the past few days.
I have not heard that.
Do you know what kind of weapons you're up against?
No, I don't.
Are you sure if somebody is in that house?
Are you sure somebody is in that
Somebody
house?
is in that house that's burning?
We believe that someone is in that house,
Do
yes.
you believe it is Christopher Dorner at this point? Every
We have
ounce-
reason to believe that it is him. The victims who had their car stolen reported to us that that suspect matched the description of Christopher Dorner.
as well as the game and fish wardens who came across him.
I don't know what the Fish and Game wardens
Can you
said.
confirm that there are no hostages, or you just don't have any information?
I
that
have
there
not
are?
been advised that there are any hostages involved in this current situation.
And just to clarify, what we're talking about is reports not today, not this one where the fire is, but on Clubview that he may have been holed up in a home or a cabin over there with a couple that was tied up. There are reports going around. We're just trying to clarify, is there any truth to any of that?
That hasn't been confirmed. Like I said, as things began to unfold, when I knew that the victims of the car theft were not hurt, I didn't ask any further about that.
Was it 3 or 4 deputies who were shot, including 2 deputies and the ranger, or were there more than that?
I'm only aware of our 2 deputy sheriffs that were shot.
Did you start with Fish and Game as originally reported?
I did hear reports that there were shots fired at a Fish and Game vehicle.
So did they then call
sheriff's department? How did
This situation was already going on at that point.
Cindy, do you know if the gas that was put into the house started the fire, or did it start internally?
I don't know.
And how much force did they go in with? Was it just gas they went in with, or other devices?
I don't know. It's an active situation, and they're not concerned about updating me with that kind of detail at this point.
Did the suspect let off a smoke bomb at some point, and did the deputies also?
No, I know that there was a smoke bomb, but I don't know if that was from the suspect or from our.
If there's any ammunition or explosions at the burning house?
We would assume that there is ammunition there.
Is time on your side, or at some point do they just go in?
That will be up to them to determine how they handle it.
Has the entire area been all the civilians in the area been moved out ahead of this, or are there people who are now in their homes in that immediate area with Christopher Dorner perhaps on the run in the Seven Oaks area?
I'm not aware that there are any neighbors who need to be evacuated. I think if there were, that was done early on.
But how confident are you that you have him? Are you going to wait until this thing completely burns to the ground before you move in?
They're evaluating it as the scene is. It's an active scene, and it's burning right now. And they have a plan. And they have not had time to update me on every detail.
I understand, but clearly we have about 30 minutes.
Being fired out of the house before the fire started, or was it after the fire started?
There was active gunfire before the fire.
Do you know what type of weapon he had? Did it look
I
like
don't.
So you don't know who started this fire? Law enforcement?
No, I
Dorner?
don't.
Cindy, there were shots coming from the cabin towards the deputies, and being a gunfire exchange.
There was an exchange of gunfire between the subject in the cabin and the law enforcement personnel that were surrounding the cabin.
And at the time, the cabin was completely surrounded by law enforcement when that exchange was going on?
Completely surrounded, I'm not sure. But there was law enforcement outside of the cabin
So he could
when
have
the
escaped.
exchange of gunfire occurred.
You have about
We had air units up as this was going on.
Just to be clear, the deputies were shot while the suspect was in the cabin, not while he was running to the cabin, correct?
I don't know the exact sequence of events. I know there was an exchange of gunfire. 2 deputies were shot. One of those deputies died as a result. The second deputy is in surgery and is expected to survive.
If this man was hit, if Dorner was hit? Did at some point Mr. Dorner abandon the stolen vehicle? Is that what you said?
He did. He abandoned the stolen vehicle and fled into the forest, and that's how he ended up in this cabin.
Do you know if gunfire had been exchanged before he abandoned the vehicle?
No, after he abandoned the vehicle.
You have about a half hour.
Hit by any chance? Do you guys
I'm sorry?
Are you guys aware if he has been hit by any of them?
We're not aware.
You have about a half hour of sunlight left. How critical is it that you guys get him before that sun goes down, or end this thing?
Well, it's critical that we end this situation as soon as possible. He's an armed and dangerous subject.
Can
And
you give us another summary, please? Up-to-date summary.
Just the beginning, summarize.
Up-to-date summary.
Is there a police car missing? Is there a police car missing?
there are no police cars missing that I'm aware of.
Is there any attempt of communication with him?
I'm not sure.
Did it appear he had any body armor?
I don't know. They didn't indicate that he
Is
did.
there any speculation that the suspect probably fled the area before he caught the house on fire?
I don't know what kind of speculation is going on there at the scene. At about 12:20, deputies that were actively working the search for Christopher Dorner received a report on Clubview Drive from the reporting party said that their vehicle had been stolen from their home. They also reported that the subject who stole their vehicle matched the description of Christopher Dorner. Immediately, all available law enforcement on the mountain and other units from down the hill began to surround the area. Our air units were up. They located the vehicle. The suspect that was driving the vehicle abandoned the vehicle and fled on foot into the forest. He barricaded himself in a cabin. At that time, there was an exchange of gunfire between the law enforcement personnel outside of the cabin and the subject inside. During that gunfight, two deputy sheriffs were shot. One of them died after being taken to Loma Linda. The second deputy is currently in surgery and is expected to survive.
Were these deputies on routine patrol, or were they part of this large assignment?
The deputies that were shot were a part of the search efforts to find Dorner. The second deputy in surgery.
The house is burning quite significantly. It doesn't seem that anybody could survive in there. How soon before they go in and confirm whether he is in there or
I don't know how soon that'll be. Probably when it's safe to do so.
Is it an abandoned cabin or it's actually an occupied?
They believe, I think that it was a rental and that there was no one there.
But how sure can you be? How secure is the area around that house? How well were your helicopters watching the area while he was in there and this was playing out? How sure are you
I can't
that
answer
whoever
that
was
right
in
now.
there was still in there?
Has the stolen vehicle crashed?
No, I don't know. I don't know. I found
You're
out
listening. This
when
is
I
from
arrived.
San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department giving an update on the situation going on up the hill where that cabin is on fire. This is Cindy.
It's my understanding that since the fire began at the cabin, there has been no other gunfire.
And what can you tell the residents of Big Bear and the surrounding area at the moment as the sun is about to set? Is this guy still on the loose?
I can't answer that for you.
But it's a possibility.
What do you want me to do?
Get out of his way.
Cindy, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
That's Cindy Bachman with the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department.
The roads are going to stay closed, I would say, for at least a few hours, probably longer.
So several hours.
It's Cindy Bachman with the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department giving an update on the situation up on the hill. As you heard, they do believe that is Christopher Dorner inside that cabin, though they could not give that 100% confirmation on that. She said that they do not know if he is still alive inside the cabin. They have not made entry. They are going to make sure that it is safe before they let anyone up in there. But that's the latest from here. We'll send it back to you guys.
Yeah, very hungry and eager press corps. Cindy Bachman, most of what she said we have already confirmed and have been telling you this timeline throughout the day that started about 12:30 this afternoon. One new nugget there. The gunfire. She said there was gunfire immediately prior to this cabin being on fire.
Yeah, that's right. She said there was active gunfire right before that fire at the cabin where we believe that Christopher Dorner is holed up. That fire has been going on now for about 20 minutes, if not a little bit more than that, and that there was no more gunfire after that. So we have two exchanges of gunfire this afternoon between who we believe is Chris Dorner and sheriff's deputies that are involved in this manhunt. The first gunfire exchange resulted in the death of one of the San Bernardino sheriff's deputies, where he was actually dead on arrival at Loma Linda Medical University Center. And then another deputy that was shot, who is currently in surgery and expected to survive, but clearly a very tense situation. 4 people now killed, allegedly killed by Dorner, and 3, he's also suspected of 3 attempted murders as well, ever since this manhunt began. And now, like we're saying, the new nugget of information is that there was active fire a second time today between what we believe is Dorner and law enforcement.
Well, you can draw your own conclusion and read between the lines there. Somebody inside this cabin was shooting at officers, and you can make a pretty educated guess as to who that was. Tim Lynn in Sky 5 with a live picture of what's left of that cabin. Tim?
Yeah, you can see it's pretty much burned to the ground, and we were hearing on the San Bernardino County fire frequencies that they're just going to let it burn to the ground, that there are no exposures. Sorry, making a turn here. As we come back around, there's no exposures to it, and so it's not threatening any other cabins or any other the trees around it. So they're just going to let it burn to the ground. And actually, I take that as good news. If there was gunfire coming out of that cabin at the officers, and now it's on fire and burning to the ground, the officers, they take that as good news, because hopefully he's in there and this will end tonight. I hate to be callous about it, but as a former law enforcement officer, that's kind of my feelings towards it. But right now you can see it, just a little bit of remnants of fire there. They were trying to get in there to check propane tanks to make sure they didn't have any propane tanks go off, but it's so dangerous with this and his shooting out of there that they could not do that. But right now you can see the smoke dispersing up through the air, the little bit of flame through the trees that we have. Like I said, we're staying a little bit wider than we normally would, just out of respect for the officers there. And you can see that most of that cabin is burnt to the ground. And once they are sure that the scene is safe, then they will bring in the fire department to douse the flames, to put it out, to make it safe for the approach. Then the SWAT officers will go in and then make their assessment to make sure that they have him in custody. But on the other hand, they got to make sure that he didn't somehow get out the back and get the high ground behind it, and be waiting for them just to do that, knowing the procedures. But I'm sure that this area is pretty well covered with officers. For the amount of SWAT officers I saw, they've got this area pretty well covered, and I don't think there's any high ground that he can get to that's not already taken by a team of some sort. But you can see what's left of that cabin there as we peek through the trees, as we make our turn back here, holding up here now up at almost 12,000 feet, about 7 miles from that cabin. You can tell that it's burnt pretty much to the ground. But yeah, they're doing their best to make sure that no one else gets hurt in this. Like I said, my heart goes out to the families for the Riverside County Sheriff, or for the San Bernardino County Sheriff, killed today, and the one injured, as well as the Riverside City officer on this. It's unbelievable that we had this type of operation going on here in Los Angeles. And like I said, as a law enforcement veteran, this has been really, really tough on the guys on the street, the guys in the black and whites, the guys out there working the streets trying to find him, as well as trying to just do their normal job, protecting the rest of us as they search for this guy and use their business as usual, and within the back of their mind, this guy could pop up at any point. So anyway, that's you can see right there, that's the best shot we can get right there, and that cabin is pretty much to the ground that we can see. And then the surrounding cabins there are not been involved, and they're just sitting back letting this thing burn to the ground. So my question is, did a incendiary device going in, a hot gas grenade going in, set this on fire, or did the suspect himself set it on fire? Because that has happened before where they've done that. So very, very strange scene up here in the mountains as they let this cabin burn to the ground, trying to get this guy into custody before nightfall. And like I said, time is on their side. Even if they have to go into the night side, they'll light this area up and really go cautiously into this to make sure that nobody else is hurt trying to capture this guy. But there's a good shot of the cabin burnt pretty much to the ground. You can see the surrounding cabins still intact. And that was a pretty good sized cabin that he was in. It looked like about a 3-division type cabin from what I could see from the first shots we had when Marcona went on scene earlier today. It looked like a pretty big cabin to me there, and you can tell by the footprint there and the size of the fire, it's pretty much burnt to the ground, as well as you can see the chimney still sticking out there. So hopefully this will end tonight. That's my hope for this, and we'll keep up here, keep an eye on it, Micah, share, and bring you the latest as it comes available to us.
Yeah, you and the rest of Southern California. Tim Lynn aboard Sky 5, Micah Ullman alongside Cher Calvin just past the top of the 5 o'clock hour. KTLA's continuing coverage of the manhunt for Chris Dorner that has now shifted from the Big Bear area to Seven Oaks, which is along Highway 38 coming out of Big Bear on your way down into Redlands. Authorities believe he was barricaded inside that cabin that is now burning to the ground. And if you're just joining us, another sheriff's deputy has lost his life. 1 in total now from San Bernardino County has died. Another shot and wounded in a firefight with a man they believe to be Dorner just a few hours ago in that Seven Oaks area. Another tragic turn for law enforcement today.
Yeah, let's take people back a couple of steps, a couple of hours, and tell you how it all ended up over at this cabin. It all began at about 12:22 this afternoon. Deputies that were working the Big Bear area searching for Christopher Dorner responded to the area of Club View Drive for a reported stolen vehicle. The reporting party said that the suspect had taken that vehicle and described the suspect as looking looking very much like Christopher Dorner. Deputies immediately began to search on the ground and also from the air for that vehicle. That vehicle was located at Highway 38 and Glass Road. Then what we suspect is Dorner fled into the forest and then barricaded himself inside this cabin, which is now burning. We understand that there was, before that burning of the cabin happened, that there was an exchange of gunfire, as Micah mentioned, between 2 deputies and Dorner, and one of them, unfortunately, died on his way to Loma Linda Medical University, Medical Center, rather. And, you know, at this point, they had surrounded the cabin, some 200 SWAT officers, from what we understand, and tear gas may be possibly lodged into that cabin, or possibly coming from Dorner inside out to the law enforcement. We still don't know. It's still an ongoing scene.
Middle of the afternoon, one San Bernardino County Sheriff's deputy died in that gunfight. Another one wounded and in surgery at this hour at Loma Linda University Medical Center. Stephen Chase is there on scene for us. Stephen, what can you tell us about the officer that has apparently survived?
Well, Micah, what we can tell you is that a news conference here in front of Loma Linda just wrapped up about 30 minutes ago. San Bernardino County Sheriff's Deputy spokesperson Jody Miller confirming information for us about the 2 deputies who were shot in that wild gunfire near Big Bear this afternoon. Now, the sheriff confirming that Chris Dorner was also involved. We should have video of the helicopters arriving here at the hospital with the 2 deputies who were victims in today's shootout near Big Bear. Officers also arriving on the scene on Code 3, lights and sirens on. Now, after today's gunfight in the San Bernardino Mountains, 2 San Bernardino deputies were shot. Shortly after, both were airlifted and brought to this hospital. Now, we now know that one of the deputies has died. That deputy, we're told, died here at the hospital from the injuries that deputy sustained. We do not know the identities of the deputies. That information has yet to be released, but we are just learning that the 2nd deputy is currently undergoing surgery for the injuries that deputy sustained. With this update, we now know accused cop killer Christopher Dorner has allegedly killed at least 2 law enforcement officers. That's in addition to the Irvine couple murdered 10 days ago, police believe also by the hands of Christopher Dorner. Using LAPD Commander Andy Smith's words, enough is enough. Another law enforcement officer killed in the line of duty. A 2nd deputy here at Loma Linda Medical University Center receiving treatment, undergoing surgery, and that's the very latest that we have. Any other updates that we get, we will make sure to post on our website at ktla.com. For now, I'll send it back to you, Micah and Cher.
Okay, Stephen Chase, live for us in Loma Linda. Thank you for that update. Again, a tragic turn here this afternoon. A San Bernardino County Sheriff's deputy losing his life in a firefight with suspect Chris Dorner. That, according to the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, they believe he was holed up inside that cabin that is now burning to the ground. Former FBI agent Steve Moore is with us. What do you make of this scene?
There's so many possibilities about what happened. In the press conference, Cindy Bachman said that there was sounds of gunfire right before the building started to burn. Well, when you deploy gas into a structure, you do it with, we used to use M79 grenade launchers and shotguns. So it will make a firearms type of sound. If they fired 10 or 11 volleys into the building, it could have sounded like gunfire. It could have been tear gas with return fire. We just don't know. It's possible. I mean, with Dorner, you don't even know. He could have been firing out the whole time. Everything is up in the air until we get some. You know what they say, all first reports are wrong, second reports are inaccurate.
Yeah, well, we also know that, that Cindy Bachman also said it's prepare for a very long night. Yeah. And that is something that you've had experience with when it comes to these kind of situations.
I think patience is the best thing right now. You kind of know where he is. At least you hope you know where he is. If I were on the scene running this, I would want, as soon as it was safe, to go in and verify that there are remains in that cabin.
Mm-hmm. So, as you heard Cindy Bachman saying, gunfire did come from that cabin shortly before it was set on fire. How it started, that fire, we do not know, but certainly you would think Advantage SWAT, good news to see and hear gunfire.
Yeah, I don't think they entered the building, but I think they were deploying gas into the building. And whether or not it was gunfire or deployment of the gas, we won't know until the debriefs.
And this is just now a waiting game at this point, isn't it, Steve?
I'm afraid it is, because you don't know what you've got.
Mm-hmm. And like we said, of course, Tim Lynn and Sky 5 saying that they're just going to let this burn down to the ground. We did see pictures earlier of what this cabin looked like. It was quite large in size. As you can see, the fire starting to die down just a little bit, and I guess only a matter of time before the sun comes down as well. So, and then we'll find out perhaps more information as this fire continues to dissipate.
Seven Oaks, a very isolated community on the highway out of Big Bear, and that gives you some sense of how things were developing this afternoon when the reports of a car being stolen in the Big Bear area by a man matching the description of Christopher Dorner, and the chase began. Law enforcement from on the mountain and off the mountain essentially cordoning this suspect along the 38 in this isolated community. Clearly, he had intentions of trying to get off the mountain at that point, but again, there's only one way out when you're on the 38. There are three ways out from Big Bear, but once you get on the 38, you've committed. And he was essentially forced into a trap and abandoned the car, and as the Sheriff's Department has been telling us, ran toward the forest. Essentially surrounded by forest in Seven Oaks. You know, the 38 is essentially a path carved through the trees. It's the middle of the forest, but they believe he was in that cabin, and it is no more.
You know, there were also reports, Micah, that earlier that perhaps he had been in that cabin area or in another cabin with two hostages since Thursday is what we had a little bit earlier, and if that's the case, when with the manhunt and the unprecedented amount of personnel that they had there, and them going through each cabin, some 200 cabins that they were looking through, it's almost just like, did he just get that lucky? Did Chris Dorner just get that lucky if he did have indeed two hostages in a cabin and they just overlooked it?
Well, the site of the stolen vehicle was Clubview Drive, and that is right smack in the middle of that search area that they were conducting, door to door, cabin to cabin. Clubview Drive is right in the middle of that neighborhood. So to think that perhaps he was in a cabin with two hostages and they walked right on by, as you heard them say, if they don't see a sign of forced entry, they'll probably continue on to the next door.
I've been on searches in the woods. I've been on searches for people who might be in a neighborhood, and it is very difficult. When you get into this situation, you start realizing how many places a person can hide. Yeah. This is a difficult job at best.
You would think that they would leave no stone unturned, though. I mean, it's just one of those situations that how could this possibly elude them? How could he possibly elude them?
Well, and that's going to be the subject of a massive after-action report. We're going to need to learn. Law enforcement is going to change because of Dorner and because of this incident right here. Like the Miami shooting with the FBI, law enforcement evolves as new threats come in, as new challenges come in. This will change urban law enforcement forever. And the after-action report will teach us what we need to learn about finding people in these situations.
Very difficult, and for what it's worth, relatively speaking, in the Big Bear community, that particular neighborhood where they were searching is densely populated. Very, very few areas where you don't see private property, an outbuilding, a home, or a garage. So a very difficult scenario in deteriorating conditions as we watched toward the end of last week when that search was going on. Tim Lynn has been watching this cabin burn. He's in Sky 5, still burning, Tim.
That's right. It's still burning as we speak. You can see right there through the trees, burning to the ground. And so all they can do is sit and wait right now to wait for that fire to die down. And like I said, make sure it's safe for the fire department to go in there and start dousing this so they can go in and look for those human remains, as they were saying. But yeah, this is a tough operation dealing with mountainous terrains for them. Also the cold up here, the snow, and then also you have the concealment issue that if you had gotten out of this cabin, they got to deal with that as well. But yeah, we're just sitting out here watching cabin burn to the ground. They're going to wait for it to completely burn down before they even put any firefighters in harm's way, to make sure that they are safe as they go in to douse this. But I guess the firefight that took place from this cabin, then the fire starting immediately thereafter, the information that we got is pretty good news as far as if they possibly captured this guy and that he is in there. So all we can do is wait here for this to burn down. So Mike, I'll send it back to you.
All right, Tim, Lynn, and Sky 5 above Seven Oaks. Thank you.
All right. In the meantime, we want to go to Chip Yost. He is over by Highway 38. He is with Cindy Bachman and has more information for us. Chip?
Yeah, we just heard that news conference Cindy gave, giving an update of what was going on there. You're hearing more from Tim from Sky 5. You're saying this whole incident started when you got a call about a stolen car. Can you kind of run us through that?
Right. We received a report of a stolen vehicle on Clubview Drive, and the victim of that theft reported that the suspect matched the description of Christopher Dorner. So all of our law enforcement resources that have been here on the mountain for 6 days responded. They eventually located the vehicle. The suspect abandoned the vehicle and fled on foot into the forest, where he barricaded himself inside the cabin.
And there was a shootout at that point where 2 deputies were hit, and unfortunately it looks like one of them passed away.
Right. There was an exchange of gunfire, and 2 of our deputies were shot. 1 deputy died at Loma Linda, and the 2nd deputy is there in surgery, and he is expected to survive.
And as far as when this fire started, was there some time lapse between that exchange of gunfire where the deputies were hit and then the exchange of gunfire where the fire happened, or was that at the same time?
There was some time where there was an exchange of gunfire, and then just not too long ago, maybe in the last 30 minutes, is when I understand the fire started at the cabin.
And last we heard, you were waiting for the all clear, or the fire department was waiting for the all clear, even though this fire was burning very strongly, as we saw from some of our images. You didn't want anyone to get close to it. The latest you heard is that they have still not gone in, or is that something you're going to, I guess, go check on?
I'll need to get an update on that, because it wouldn't be safe for the firefighters to approach the building knowing there's an armed and dangerous subject inside.
And how many deputies and searchers did you have out today? Was it the same did you guys scale down at all in the last few days, or was it the same amount?
We had scaled back in the last couple of days. The first couple of days we had more than 100, including our air resources and dogs. And in the last couple of days we've had roughly about 30, and including some additional patrol units and our air support. The weather's been great, so that was helpful.
In this area of Clubview Drive and also the area where he's holed up now, is that an area that was searched before with the teams?
I don't know. I'm not familiar with the area, so I couldn't answer that.
Okay, we're going to let you go because I know you want to go get an update on the latest. Thanks for giving us that rundown. We are hearing reports that things may have ended up there, but Cindy's been down here with us, so she needs to go out and get an update and find out what she can get confirmed as far as what the situation is up there on the hill. Reporting live, I'll send it back to you guys.
All right, thank you, Chip. Again, he's over there at Highway 38, where checkpoints have been taking place, and pretty much where that road has been closed for hours. Also Highway 330 and 18 into that area, also part of that checkpoint and closure. So they're hearing again from Cindy Bachman about the situation that we're still trying to get more information about as we watch the cabin still in flames, which was, I think it went in flames about an hour ago, from what we believe was a gun battle with Dorner and law enforcement.
We are waiting for the eventuality here, Steve. There's only one of a couple of ways this can turn at this point. As law enforcement has been saying, they had Dorner barricaded inside that cabin. We don't know how the fire started, but the cabin is essentially burned to the ground.
It's gone. It's gone. I hope that he was in that cabin. I hate to wish for the death of a person, but more people will die until we are sure that he is gone.
Well, that's certainly what was in his manifesto. He said that the casualties would be high, that he would continue to kill in his manifesto, that he also probably would not live to see his name cleared in what he believes he was wronged, and what began a personal vendetta, a revenge killing over being fired from the LAPD. So again, I mean, he said it in his own words, saying that he would lose his life probably before his name, he believed, should be cleared.
If you're just joining us, 23 past the 5 o'clock hour, a standoff with Chris Dorner in a cabin in Seven Oaks. Authorities telling us he's barricaded, or was, inside that cabin that is now burned to the ground. Seven Oaks, about 20 miles as the crow flies south of Big Bear. And it's right off Highway 38, which is one of 3 ways out of town. And if you're thinking of heading up that way, you might want to make other plans, because all 3 highways leading in and out of Big Bear Lake are closed at this point, and authorities are at this point searching every car and turning cars away, searching every car that comes off the mountain, not letting anybody on the mountain aside from emergency personnel in what has now become a deadly standoff this afternoon. A San Bernardino County Sheriff's deputy losing his life in gunfire with suspect Chris Dorner.
Certainly this has had its twists and turns, and we have never seen anything quite like this before. Also, the resources that the LAPD, the San Bernardino Sheriff's Department, the Riverside Police Department, Irvine, even San Diego Police Department involved in this, as well as authorities in Tijuana. This is some kind of all for one man who had threatened to kill as many as he could in order to get his point across, what we've been calling revenge killings. And to see so many of these agencies involved in this kind of a manhunt or involved in this kind of a vendetta is really unprecedented.
It's amazing. It's been years since I've seen anything like this.
Yeah, I tell you what, this individual, however you want to describe it, he believed he was railroaded by the LAPD and that he was wrongfully terminated. He was essentially found to be falsifying a report. He claimed that an officer that he was with, who was actually training him, used excessive force on an individual in San Pedro. It went before a review board, and the review board determined that officer at the time, Chris Dorner, was not telling the truth, and he lost his job. And the result of that you're seeing play out here over the past 9 days. And where they believe Chris Dorner was in that burning cabin in Seven Oaks, we have yet to hear word on what has come of this standoff in Seven Oaks. We continue to watch the cabin burn, and Tim Lynn has been watching it as well aboard Sky 5, albeit from a distance. The temporary flight restrictions still in place. Tim, what are you, 6-7 miles off the scene?
You there?
Tim, you're on the air.
Okay, as you can see, we're still looking at the fire as it's working its way down. The smoke is pretty much diminished from it. You can see that it's just barely burning there between the cab, or between the trees right there. And I'll echo the sentiments of your other spokesman there. I hope he's inside here, because this has been very dangerous for us. But the fire department is holding back. They're out on 38, waiting for the call from the sheriff's department to come on in and douse the flames so they can make it safe for them to go in and search for any human remains that may be in here. But you know, this has been something that a lot of these law enforcement officers have trained for, but never expected to see, to have a 2-week-long gunfight go on and search go on for a suspect who is just so determined to kill law enforcement at any cost, and also civilians at any cost, to make his point, to try to clear his name, but kind of an odd way to do that. That you know, that he would do this type of situation. And for that couple who were held up there on Clubview Drive near the ski resorts, where he stole the car to get down this far, they had to have some harrowing times for them. But right now we're just in a standoff right now with the cabin burning, sitting here watching it burn away, waiting for the next step by the San Bernardino County Sheriff's SWAT, along with City SWAT, LA City SWAT, and LA County SWAT, who are up here supporting. But a lot of manpower up here in the hills around the Angeles Oaks, Seven Oaks area, in the Big Bear area, is looking for this Christopher Dorner as this cabin burns to the ground. So, Micah, let me send it back to you.
Steve, we can see what are likely officers or deputies on that street that is right adjacent to this burning cabin, just sort of walking nonchalantly. That tells you something. Yeah,
it tells me they've got no fear at all that anything's going to be coming out of that burning wreckage right now, and I think they're just waiting it out to go in and find hopefully one and no more bodies.
Mm-hmm. Again, we can't confirm whether Dorner is dead or alive at this point. That information hasn't come down yet. But you know, as you can tell, like Micah said, if they're walking nonchalantly around there, perhaps that might just be the situation that Dorner is no longer alive. Tell us more about what is going on at this point from the officer's vantage point, since you've been on that kind of situation before.
You cannot discount completely the possibility that Dorner was not in the building when it burned. You have to assume the worst. So they are still going to be operating their perimeters. They are still going to be looking in cars until at such time they can find a body there. Still, they need to know it's Dorner before they give this whole thing up. But they are going to hang on to their current tactics until they can determine what to do here, or where they go from here.
Right. And at this point, it looks as though, and what we've been hearing is that they're just going to let it burn to the ground, and then. But that gives you some sense of perhaps a lack of urgency. I mean, I know that if they had a belief that he was still an active shooter, obviously they wouldn't be taking the position that they were taking there on that street.
You're
in front of that house.
You're absolutely right. It's on a strategic level. You can't assume he was in the building. From a tactical level, you're seeing what they believe
You
scene.
can't assume anything until you know.
That's right. The officers on the scene must be pretty sure.
I mean, for them to be that casual after, for the last, almost a week now, having been in such a tense mode, is definitely pictures we haven't seen in a few days. From all over Southern California, in front of people's homes, LAPD's families whose homes were being protected by other officers, and them standing guard with guns ready to go. It's really a scene that I've never seen before here in America.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we are reporting everything that you can report on a scenario like this, other than the location and the condition of the suspect. And we are essentially reporting in tighter and tighter circles around the eventuality that it appears as though he has been neutralized as a threat. They don't know where he is. They don't, or at least they haven't reported publicly where he is. But we can make a certain set of assumptions based on what we're looking at and the behavior of the officers on the scene.
Let's go back up to Tim Lynn. He's been in Sky 5 watching this scene for us all afternoon. Tim?
Yeah, it's just a static situation here as they watch that cabin burn, and I was unable to see those officers walking there. That's what we're trying not to do, is to give away any positions down there. But you can tell right now that it's still burning quite heavily, just in a very big footprint. As I said, that was a large cabin that was up there that he was possibly in, and so it's just a matter of time for this thing burns down. We're about, I'd say about 18 minutes before we have to leave from the mountains up here. Sunset's right at 5:30 here. And so we're not going to be able to stay up here much longer as darkness falls on this area. But you can see now with the light, or with the darkness falling into that valley right there, the fire really is now standing out to us. You can see just how big of a footprint that is. It's quite a large area that's on fire there, quite a large cabin that I remember seeing from the earlier shots burning. And then they also have to deal with the propane tanks that are around. The fire department was warning the sheriff's department about that, because most of the cabins up here do not have natural gas coming in, but they do have large propane tanks to deliver fuel and heat to the cabins. But right now, the sheriff's department just back in the wait and see mode here, waiting to see if when this thing finally gets down to a point where they can put water on it to cool it down, and then get in there and start that search for hopefully just one body, as Steve was saying, just one body in there, and then that body will be identified as Christopher Dorner. But this is bizarre. I mean, in my 30 years of law enforcement, other than the SLA standoff way back in the, I believe that was late 60s, early 70s, this has been just unbelievable stuff, events that have gone along related to Christopher Dorner, as we been following this story all along, all the way from the murder of the couple back on Super Bowl Sunday to the shooting of the Riverside City officer, and then today just about for the San Bernardino County Sheriff here. So we'll stick here, keep an eye on this, and bring anything that we learn on this story. Micah, Cher, back to you.
And we can continue to report even tighter circles around the eventuality of Chris Dorner, as we can tell you now that the highways are being reopened in the Big Bear area in the San Bernardino National Forest. Chip Yost is at a checkpoint along the 38 in Mentone with new information as it regards the traffic there. Chip?
Yeah, just within the last few minutes, take a look. This is Highway 38 at Bryant Street. This is where we're stopping everyone, not letting anyone go up the hill. They just announced a few minutes ago they are going to start letting residents up the hill. You can read into that maybe that the situation up there has been somewhat contained. We're still waiting for confirmation whether or not they've made entry or been able to confirm if Christopher Dorner is in that cabin, if he's alive or dead. We've heard reports that he may be dead, but Cindy Bachman was down here. We asked her. She said she could not confirm that because she was down here with us, and she left a little while ago to try to get some information. But you can tell from the fact that the roads are reopened that something has changed up there. They have deemed it safe, at least for these residents, to go back to their homes up in that area, and we'll try to get more information, some confirmation as to what exactly happened up in that cabin, what they've been able to get in and see here, hopefully in the next few minutes. Micah, Cher.
All right, Chip Yost for us live there at Mentone, right there by Highway 38. Again, they are reopening those highways, which have been closed for so many hours due to checkpoints, and it really was quite a nightmare for anybody that wanted to try and get through there because of the search for Dorner. But as we are joined again with Steve Moore, an expert in FBI, former FBI agent, you know, with the way that things are moving at this point, it seems to be moving quite fast. We see the law enforcement in a bit more relaxed mode around the cabin, and now we've got highways that are open that were once closed.
It does look like they are operating on some kind of certainty that we may not have right now. And you wonder how they get that, if maybe he exited the building when it was burning and that's where it ended. But it seems to me that they are acting as if they have a certainty about this.
And the LA Times now reporting new information regarding the initial engagement with who they believe was Chris Dorner this afternoon in the Seven Oaks area. Essentially reporting that the California Department of Fish and Wildlife officer actually saw on Highway 38 an individual matching the description of Dorner in a truck matching the description of the one reported stolen, heading essentially westbound or down the mountain on the 38. That Fish and Wildlife officer was driving in the opposite direction, saw what he saw, made a U-turn, and then called for backup. San Bernardino County Sheriff's deputies showed up on scene, and that is when the shootout began, very near this cabin here in Seven Oaks, and that is where one deputy lost his life, the other injured. But it was a fish and game officer that initially spotted who they believe to be Dorner heading off the mountain in that stolen truck.
All right, let's go back to Chip Yost in Mentone for more information. Chip. Chip, could take it away.
Yeah, we told you a minute ago that they have opened the roads. We've got Mark Wilson here. He's been stuck down here. I live in
Angeles Oaks.
And you just went up to try to find out if you could get to your home. What were you told as far as the...
I was told I could go up there as long as I show ID, proper ID, and the cutoff's like Angeles Oaks, pretty much.
Angeles Oaks. And what were you told about as far as the situation up on the hill? Did they tell you anything about where you could or couldn't go once you got up there?
It's just as far as Angeles Oaks, and that's it.
Okay, Mark. Well, thanks very much. We got some of the... Actually, let's go. We got a deputy right here. What's the situation, sir?
I have no idea, but you guys can go up to Angeles Oaks.
And are you allowed past Angeles Oaks?
I have no idea. That's all I've been told to tell you.
Do you know if the situation has been cleared up there?
No idea.
Well, there you go. So they are letting people up at least that far right now, and we're going to try to find Cindy Bachman and get the latest as far as the situation on the ground in front of that cabin, though. So it's something that's definitely changed, as you can see, and as you've seen from Tim Lynn's shots up there. We'll send it back to you guys.
And we continue to read between the lines here. Angeles Oaks is a mere 3 to 4 miles from Seven Oaks, and that's where media will be staging. That's apparently where law enforcement will be staging, and we will likely see some sort of press briefing in that area in the very near future with an update on the situation as it's unfolding here in Seven Oaks.
All right, let's go back up to Tim Lynn for a last look, because we're going to have to leave the area as the sun comes down there. Tim, take it away.
You can see right there what's left of it. We're descending just a little bit to get a little bit better shot, but we're just about out of light up here in the mountains. along the 38. You can see how big of a fire that is. It's still burning away. We have not heard any other chatter on the police frequencies up here or the fire frequencies saying they're going to make an approach or they've done any type of aggressive act towards the house or push into it. But you can see right there, fire still burning completely out of control. No firefight going on right now. But yeah, the fire department is holding back, waiting for the sheriff's department to let them in. And we're going to have to start making our turn to head out of the mountains to get out before the darkness sets. So these are going to be our final images up here from Sky 5 of this Chris Dorner story here in Seven Oaks, Angeles Crest area. Micah, Sheriff, let me send it back to you.
All right, Tim Lind, thank you. And Steve Moore, as we've been talking, the fire crews allowed ever closer, which gives you even more indication that the threat has been neutralized.
Yes, I believe that they've got some type of certainty, some type of evidence right now that they are basing their decisions on. Obviously, you can say, well, nobody could have survived, and I get that logic. But to me, it seems like there may be even more, that they may have some further information. They're acting pretty certain at this point. And it just may be that nobody could have survived that. Yeah. I'd just like to have more information.
Well, and the sense is that they do?
Yeah, that's where I'm going with this.
Yeah, and what started in Irvine with the murder of newly engaged couple Monica Kwan and Keith Lawrence, now possibly ending here in Seven Oaks. And, you know, as we've been seeing and talking, Steve, yeah, it just seems as if they got their man.
Yeah, and they are acting as if they are certain of that, not as if, well, we're assuming it.
Right. And our reporting continues with Christina Pascucci, who is on the phone with us with new information regarding the two people that were held hostage by who they believe was Chris Dorner. Christina?
Good evening, Micah. Yeah, we just arrived here in Big Bear Lake at the sheriff's station, and we were told that officers and deputies are being debriefed right now. They'll come out with the latest information. But a law enforcement source who doesn't want to be identified also just told me that the two women who were held hostage, they were tied up with zip ties, and they were reportedly the cleaning crew who was going into that home on Clubview Drive, the 1200 block of Clubview Drive, when they opened the door and they stumbled upon Christopher Dorner.
Well, isn't that interesting? Again, another layer to this story that those two women that he held hostage were part of a cleaning crew for that cabin. What other information are they giving you, and how soon do you think that we're going to hear from authorities?
Well, authorities have just come up to us. I was kind of standing by a door waiting for these two women to come out to see if we could question them on their experience. Obviously shaken up for this law enforcement official telling me, to stumble upon Christopher Dorner, you can only imagine the thoughts racing through their head. His face has been all over the media for this since this manhunt began last week. And they are telling us they're trying to kind of move us out of the area to keep us away from them, it seems. But they are going to have a press conference at some point, they believe, in the coming hours, and will hopefully give us an update at that point.
So, Christina, again, was this on Thursday that the encounter happened and the hostages were taken?
They're not telling us exactly any further details surrounding the timeline, how long they were held, when this happened. All they're saying is that they were being held with zip ties, and they are okay. Clearly shaken up, but otherwise appear to be okay at this point.
Yeah, the Clubview Drive, again, is very close proximity to where his truck was found burning, and right smack in the middle of their search perimeter that began hours after that truck was found.
And the fact that he had zip ties means that he was ready to take hostages at any time, which he clearly did. And we were lucky, luckily they were not hurt or killed, Steve.
Boy, they must have felt like the luckiest people in the world not to be dead. Yeah. And right after feeling like they were the unluckiest. You're right, he had zip ties, unless he had found them in the house. But likely this shows even more pre-planning. And if he had zip ties, what was he going to take somebody hostage? I mean, this is terrifying, what he might have had planned. And you're right, if this is within just a mile or two of where the truck was found.
Less than a mile. It's less than a mile.
Okay, then you're going to have to find out in the debrief what happened.
Well, now it raises even more questions. Law enforcement, as we know, was looking for signs of forced entry.
Right.
And obviously, if they found that at this residence, it would have been game on, and they would have surrounded the house. They didn't do that. They didn't see forced entry. So to think that the housekeepers walked in on him makes you wonder, were they out at the car and left the front door open and he snuck in? I mean, there was no forced entry. How did he get into the residence before the housekeepers?
It's a million possibilities. He could have broken into another house, stayed there while this one was searched, jumped over to this one. The house could have been accidentally unlocked. I mean, that happens a lot with cleaners. There's so many possibilities here. I don't want to jump to a conclusion except to say that it sure needs, it's a question that needs answered.
Yeah, and from what we understand, when we spoke with the homeowner, actually, of this cabin, she had said, it's one of those houses, built in the 20s, and, in that area, it's easy to get in. It's not like it's a difficult house to get into. So without any visible signs of forced entry, of course, possibly he did force himself in, but without any visible signs, it's no wonder why they possibly, law enforcement, overlooked that house. And then there's also the fact of which we've been talking about earlier, them tagging certain houses, which would give Dorner the clue that, oh, okay, they've been here and they're not going to check it again.
The one thing I don't think I would have done is tagged a home and said, we're not coming back to look at this. Because that would have been the house, and he would have known possibly that tactic or that technique. If I had seen one of those, that's where I'd live.
Well, I tell you, there is only so much you can do when you see hundreds and hundreds of homes and they look unscathed. I mean, you're talking about violating people's rights, just barging into every home, sight unseen, on the chance that someone might be in there.
And that's the real difficult thing about searches like this. I mean, I've seen agents find fugitives in resort areas simply by seeing that the electric meter was running. But if Dorner didn't even use electricity in the place, how are you going to know that anybody's in there? I doubt he'd turn on lights.
Again, this is Clubview Drive. The reporting is indicating that two housekeepers, according to San Bernardino County Sheriff's officials, two housekeepers were held hostage inside a cabin very close to where Dorner's truck was found burning. And so you can draw your own conclusions, but this will all be flushed out in the coming days as we learn more about this. But it appears at this point, I don't know if we have a picture in downtown Los Angeles, but we are seeing Mayor Villaraigosa, Commander Andy Smith, LAPD, and a number of other uniformed officers approaching the media availability area outside police headquarters. And we're awaiting to see exactly what they're going to do, if they're going to talk to the media, if they're perhaps leaving. We'll wait and see and stand by. But we are awaiting some sort of eventuality here on the scenario that's been unfolding in Seven Oaks for the past several hours. This standoff between county sheriff's deputies and Chris Dorner in the Seven Oaks area near Big Bear.
Yeah, we see that, we understand that Mayor Villaraigosa is approaching the media right now. And if we can try and get that shot up for us, do we have that from downtown LA outside of LAPD headquarters?
So we'll listen to an audio feed then at the moment of Mayor Villaraigosa talking now live. Okay,
right,
we're working on getting that at this point, but
want to say that
okay, let's take it.
On behalf of the people of Los Angeles, our hearts and prayers are with the San Bernardino deputy who was shot and killed today. Our prayers are with their family, with the people of San Bernardino, with the police, with their bravery. I want to thank all of the law enforcement professionals who have day and night tried to bring Christopher Dorner to justice. And obviously I'm not going to comment on what most of you have seen as I have, because I'm not in a position to do that. That's for the representatives of the San Bernardino Sheriff Department. I also want to say something about the men and women and their families who were targeted. I've called a number of them over the last few days to tell them that our hearts and prayers are with them. None of us can imagine what they've had to go through, what their children have had to go through because of the threats of Christopher Dorner. And I just want to thank the members of the Los Angeles Police Department who put their lives on the line every single day. Thank you very much. We're live. I'll say now in Spanish, quiero dar las bendiciones a la familia.
Essentially sending out condolences on behalf of the city of Los Angeles to the fallen officers in this manhunt for Chris Dorner, though the mayor will not confirm the eventuality that appears to have taken place here in the Seven Oaks area, only saying, the mayor, that the condolences go out to the family members of the officers who've lost their lives in such a tragic twist over the last couple of days.
Yeah, as this press conference is going on outside of LAPD headquarters, we assume only that in the next coming minutes or so, or moments, that San Bernardino Sheriff's Department, the San Bernardino Sheriff, will also come out, as they are the lead agency on this, to give their update as you see Mayor Villaraigosa walk away from the podium there in downtown LA.
It is to give you some sort of sense that this thing's coming to an end. The mayor's not going to come out and make a statement like that. You wouldn't think, understanding protocol at that moment, if the threat's been neutralized in some fashion. We have yet to hear from San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department. We can only tell you that the roads for residents have been reopened into the mountains. You can look at that how you will. And we can tell you that media is being allowed into Angeles Oaks, which is some 3 miles up Highway 38 from Seven Oaks. So the media staging area is moving ever closer to this scene here, what officers on the scene have been calling Dorner's last stand for the last several hours here.
And our Christina Pascucci also having a moment to see the two hostages that that Dorner allegedly took and actually tied with those twist ties as well. And so we're seeing different developments of this investigation, of this manhunt take place. But once you see the mayor, like you said, Micah, we can pretty much say this is over. With the highways open, this is over. They got their man.
It's over in some fashion. We can't confirm that. We can only speculate based on what we're seeing. And there's a lot to see in that regard at this point. These are now taped images. Sky 5 forced to leave the area due to darkness, but these taped images of that cabin in Seven Oaks from just about 10 minutes ago. And we've been looking at this static picture for the better part of an hour plus of this cabin fully involved in flames. The standoff lasting a good hour or two with the suspect inside that cabin. There were reports of the sounds of gunfire. We don't know for sure whether that was gunfire or perhaps the sound of tear gas canisters going off. But what we understand from the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department is that they did not intentionally set that cabin on fire, that perhaps that was some sort of an inadvertent after effect of their tactical maneuvering with that suspect holed up in the cabin.
Micah, we are getting some new information right now from the LA Times that a single gunshot was heard as authorities moved into the cabin where Christopher Dorner was believed to be holed up. Those pictures that you're looking at right now. We're also understanding that according to law enforcement, that police had broken down windows, that they did indeed pump tear gas and blasted a loudspeaker urging Dorner to give up. Something that, of course, all of the authorities and all different agencies have been requesting. When they got no response, police deployed a vehicle to rip down the walls of the cabin one by one, peeling an onion, from what we understand, of this house. That's what, according to one law enforcement officials. And by the time they got to the last wall, they heard a single gunshot.
And we want to stress that Dorner's body has not been found, according to the sources. Police are now searching that home. They're focusing on the basement area, but they have yet to find Dorner's body. But again, ever tighter circles of reporting. Law enforcement on scene hearing a single gunshot as they were tearing down the walls of that cabin shortly before it was set on fire. A single gunshot. They have yet to find Dorner's body. We stand by for confirmation on what I think most of Southern California is hoping will be an end to this nightmare that has gone on now for so many days.
It certainly has had everybody on edge, from Big Bear residents up there, here in Los Angeles, the LAPD, the Irvine PD, Riverside. The Riverside County has been on alert as well, and of course, it really has in San Bernardino. It really has been one of those day after day where information keeps on coming in, and you just trying to keep up with where could Dorner possibly be, and the LAPD getting some 1,045 tips already on possible sightings, and then cases of mistaken identity as well. It really has been quite a harrowing task for all of law enforcement, and they had put so much of their efforts and their personnel on this particular case.
Steve, does that jive now, hearing what the tactics were that were involved in moving in on this cabin, as opposed to perhaps intentionally setting the cabin on fire? You're now hearing that they were tearing it down wall by wall.
Right. I never believed they intentionally, or that the law enforcement intentionally set it down, set the fire. That's an interesting tactic. I guess they did not want to wait any longer to get this guy. So it's gives you an idea of how they are so sure that he's gone.
Again, a single gunshot that they heard.
Which is not the way he said he'd go.
Yeah.
No, it isn't.
He said he would go out with a fight, that's for sure. I think what's also interesting is part of that, as part of the report that we're getting from our partners at the LA Times, is that along with that single gunshot, that's when the flames began to spread through the structure. So you also wonder if maybe perhaps he had set up some kind of booby trap. I mean, in his manifesto, he stated clearly that he had certain kinds of ammunition and certain kinds of guns that were not available to the public, and that he did, in fact, have those guns in his possession, and who knows what else he could have had with him as well.
If he was running at the time, though, and this was not a pre-planned cache of weapons, he may have gotten to that cabin with precious little ammunition, precious few weapons, and very little more that he could do. And that might account for his actions right at the end. He may not have had the means to fight much any longer, but it's still a bittersweet. I mean, it's a sweet end because it's ended, but it's bittersweet that this whole thing went on.
And so many lives lost as well. We have that newly engaged couple that was senseless. A police officer that he killed, and then a deputy that died today in a gun battle, along with the 3 that he attempted to murder as well.
And it kind of mitigates against any kind of legitimacy to his mental health, to this being. I mean, people who have work problems do not slaughter people. This was a pre-existing condition, a pre-existing mental condition. Whether or not he was a victim of anything at LAPD really had nothing to do with this ultimately. This is a man with severe emotional problems who could not figure out a way to deal with life.
With us once again on the phone, Andrew Blankstein from the LA Times newsroom. Andrew, further reporting indicating a sort of inevitability here to this scene. Again, law enforcement not confirming that they have Dorner, dead or alive, but we are learning more as to what's going on there in Seven Oaks within the last half hour.
They're going to take the better part of the evening to make an official determination, but we kind of learn more about the sequence of events in this tactical operation that led to this fire that appears, according to multiple law enforcement office sources, to have killed him. What the sources are saying, that there was initially an attempt to break the windows in this cabin. Tear gas was put in. It's not clear if it was incendiary or kind of the more what they call cold gas. There was a PA announcement asking him to surrender. They got no response. they started using a vehicle, and I'm not sure exactly what type of vehicle, to start ripping down the walls of the cabin. It was described to me like peeling the layers of an onion. At some point, they get to the last wall, and then, according to sources, there's a single gunshot that's heard at that point, and that's where I think that's where they presume that Chris Dorner may have shot himself fatally at that point. And as that's going on, shortly after the flames start to engulf the cabin, and kind of where what you're looking at in the live shot there, the smoke and the flames visible. And as I said, they're not going to go in there to make any determination until it's it's safe to go in there for folks.
Unfortunately, we had to send our helicopter home as the night falls there, along as other media ships as well doing the same thing. We're looking now at video that we shot earlier during the height of that fire over at the cabin. So probably at this point right now, those flames dissipating, coming down to the ground, and the search, as you were saying, going now maybe into the basement area of that cabin. Now, there was also in your report, Andrew, talking about how there was a shot, and then that's when those flames started. Do we think that there was any kind of, I don't know, booby traps, explosives, or some kind of sort of thing that he may have set up in that cabin to ignite such a big flame?
Well, I mean, they did fire in tear gas. It's not known what, if anything, he had with him, although there was a report of explosions of ammunition. They call it, when there's a fire and rounds start to explode, bullets, they call it cooking off rounds, is kind of the terminology in law enforcement parlance. So there was definitely shots heard, and that's dangerous, too, for anybody that's in close proximity. So they are going to stay back until everything's dissipated, that there's no danger. And then, again, as you alluded to, Cher, they're going to be very careful about approaching that area in case, the unknown is that he brought something in that could have been a secondary explosive. It's doubtful that anything like that would be left, but you never know, and they're not going to take any chances.
Andrew Blankstein, stand by if you would, please. We want to alert the viewers to the top of the hour here, the 6 o'clock news on KTLA. Micah Ullman alongside Cher Calvin with continuing coverage of the manhunt for Chris Dorner. And we want to remind you, if you'd like to watch the President's State of the Union address, we will be streaming it live on our website, ktla.com. Again, the President's State of the Union address set to begin moments from now. We will stream it live for you on our website, ktla.com, but we'll continue with our coverage here of the manhunt for Chris Dorner. And we're on the phone with Andrew Blankstein from the LA Times. Andrew, you indicated something very important. It'll be some time, you say, before law enforcement makes a definitive statement on the whereabouts and the condition of Chris Dorner.
Right. I mean, they're in a situation now where they're not going to take chances. There's been enough people who have been harmed and killed in this, in this almost week-long a series of incidents that have unfolded. So they're not going to take any chances now here at the end. And, in case there's something that they overlooked, clearly they're going to also approach it very slowly. But again, the conventional wisdom at this point is that he perished in the flames, and then the next thing is going to be whether they can positively identify remains. But they said they're going to be there. The people that I talked to, law enforcement is going to be on the scene now for the foreseeable future. It's a crime scene, and they have several of these to process now, given the events of today.
Andrew, what can you tell us about those hostages? We understand that they were questioned, and they should be talking soon as well. Do you know anything about their situation?
I mean, the only thing that I knew is there was a couple that was where he had taken the truck. According to my sources, that the couple, he had broken into their house, tied them up, taken their truck. And then there's, short time after that, there's the encounter with the Fish and Wildlife officers where they tried to pull him over and stop him. And then there's a firefight that starts from that. He gets away at that point, and then there's the second encounter with San Bernardino Sheriff's deputies, and then he's basically holed up in the cabin until the past hour and these latest events that I described, and now kind of the wait and see game and see if he's officially pronounced.
And to remind our viewers, that encounter with Fish and Wildlife happened a good distance from Big Bear, where the truck was reported stolen. That's a good 20 miles plus as you head down the mountain on the 38. Andrew, were you given any indication as to the timeline of those hostages being taken and the point where the truck was stolen? Did this all go down today? Were they perhaps held in that home for several days? We don't know.
You know, the law enforcement sources it said they might have been held for several days. We're still trying to sort that piece of the timeline out, but it's clear, like sometime today, as he takes this truck, and everybody was kind of hearing this like shortly after noon, and I think that's first kind of the radio calls that went out about the initial gunfight, and then the second exchange of gunfire that takes place with San Bernardino County deputies. As you said, you know, about 20 miles from there, and unfortunately resulted in one deputy losing his life and another, you know, being seriously wounded. And this coming, and I might add, the day before, you know, Riverside Police were going to bury one of their, Riverside police officer was going to be buried because of last week's fatal shooting.
Andrew Blankston with the LA Times giving us some breaking details as to what exactly went down at that cabin. He's going to stay with us here on the phone. In the meantime, we want to go to Glenn Walker, also following this very closely along with the rest of our KTLA team. He's in the newsroom with more information for us at this moment. Glenn.
Yeah, Sharon, Mike, as we continue to watch these images from earlier of that cabin burning, as you have reported, officers at some point started ripping down the walls of the cabin. They heard a single gunshot, but at this point there is no confirmation that Christopher Dorner is in fact the man who was in that cabin that was in a shootout with police officers. Now, this all started in the Big Bear area on Thursday. That is when Christopher Dorner's pickup truck was located. It was on fire, and from what we understand at this point, this could have happened probably Thursday, maybe Friday, as this massive manhunt began. Dorner broke into a cabin. There were a couple of housekeepers in that house. He took them hostage, tied them up, and stayed in that house the entire weekend as the search for him continued. And then sometime this morning, as the manhunt started to thin out a little bit with only 30 officers around the Big Bear area looking for him, he decided to make his break. At that point, he took off in a pickup truck, but at that point, about 12:45 p.m., he was allegedly spotted by state fish and wildlife officers. They saw the white pickup truck. They had a shootout as they were driving down the road. Dorner crashed the truck during that chase, continued to exchange gunfire with the officers. He then fled into the woods, and that's how he ended up in this cabin in Seven Oaks, and he was quickly surrounded at that point by San Bernardino County Sheriff's deputies. And that's when another gunfight ensued. One deputy was hit as Dorner fired out of the cabin. A second was injured when Dorner tried to exit out of the back of the cabin, and he actually deployed a smoke bomb, opened fire, and again trying to flee, but there. The law enforcement themselves actually used their own smoke bomb as cover to try to recover one of those deputies who was laying in the street in front of the cabin. This thing at that point was pretty much a standoff, and then at some point officers late this afternoon filed some tear gas canisters into that cabin. The fire started, and at that point we began to see the images of the smoke coming up. The cabin burning, and then at some point the officers moved in, started ripping down the walls, peeling it away. As they said, they described it as like peeling layers of skin off of an onion, and that's when they heard the single gunshot, and that's pretty much where this stands right now. Again, no confirmation that it was Christopher Dorner that was inside that cabin, but there is that single gunshot, so it is presumed that whoever was in there probably at this point maybe has committed suicide, which is certainly a far different ending than what Christopher Dorner was threatening in his manifesto, where he said that he was going to go out in a shootout with cops, but it would appear from what we know so far that there's a good possibility he has actually taken his own life after taking the life of 4 other people and wounding 3 others.
Glenn, I know we've been watching a cabin for some time in the Seven Oaks area. Does this appear to you to be a different cabin than the one that we were over initially, the one where the smoke grenades went off?
Well, it's kind of hard to tell, but you know, the reports we were getting, it's the same cabin. I mean, you know, unfortunately, this chopper shot is from an entirely different angle. It's not looking down on the front of it as we were seeing before. Apparently, it may be from the back. But I can't think of any other explanation why another cabin in that complex of cabins would be on fire. It's kind of an interesting history here. These cabins were actually built way back in the 1920s. And they're owned by a woman named Candy Martin, who we talked to earlier today. She, of course, absolutely shocked that this is taking place on her cabin. And that one big building also served as like a kind of a conference room and you know, a large kitchen for the entire complex of cabins, which all had their own kitchens. But it was, you know, this is one of those places. This cabin, you could actually use it for you know, for big meetings and that type of thing. But at this point, that obviously this is an 84-year-old cabin that now is going to be a total loss.
It certainly is going to be a total loss, that's for sure. And just the visual of what Andrew Blankston has been reporting to us over at the LA Times, that they were peeling it back like an onion, just to think about what that looks like. And that scene is pretty incredible. And, you know, at this point, we're just waiting now for the San Bernardino Sheriff's Department, who's been the lead agency on this, to give us confirmation that Dorner is dead. But that could take some time, as we were talking, because of they need to ID Dorner as well.
Yeah, they're going to focus their search on the basement of this residence. It's all that's left. And will likely take some time before making an announcement. That, according to the sources talking to Andrew Blankstein. We want to go to Stephen Chase now outside Loma Linda University Medical Center, where the sheriff's deputies who were shot were taken. Stephen?
Micah, you know, a very sad and emotional scene here at Loma Linda University Medical Center. I'm going to step aside so you can see the heavy presence of law enforcement officers here to support the two deputies shot in today's wild shootout near Big Bear. During a news conference about 2 hours ago, San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department confirming one of their own has been killed after being shot by Christopher Dorner. Now, we have video from earlier today of helicopters arriving here at the hospital with the two deputies who were shot. Officers also arriving on the scene to support those deputies. Again, after today's gunfight near Big Bear, two San Bernardino deputies were shot shortly after. Both were airlifted and brought to this hospital. Again, we know one of the deputies has died here at the hospital. We don't know the identities of the deputies. That information has yet to be released, but we were told the second deputy underwent surgery earlier today. That deputy's present condition unknown, but a spokesperson telling me how much today's violence has hurt the department.
There's a large presence of law enforcement. Law enforcement is a very close-knit family. All law enforcement agencies is a brotherhood. So this is a very difficult day, again, for law enforcement.
And so with this update, we now know accused cop killer Christopher Dorner has allegedly killed at least 2 law enforcement officers, and that's in addition to the young couple in Irvine that was also killed 10 days ago, police believe, at the hands of Dorner. We're going to stay here at Loma Linda University Medical Center for the very latest update on the second deputy who was shot and is here at the hospital receiving treatment. We'll bring you that update as soon as possible. For now, Micah and Cher, we'll send it back to you guys.
All right, Stephen Chase reporting for us live in Loma Linda. We now want to go to Chris Wolf. He's standing by in downtown LA at the LAPD headquarters. He now has an update for us. Chris?
Yeah, Cher, you know, we were all caught off guard by the mayor's comments earlier. There was no forewarning whatsoever just before Mayor Villaraigosa spoke here at LAPD headquarters in downtown Los Angeles. I was on the phone with the media relations folks here at the department, and they said no further comment is planned right now this evening. No further press conferences are planned, and then all of a sudden Mayor Villaraigosa pops up. And although he cannot confirm or flat out say Christopher Dorner is dead, his demeanor, his comments, his behavior seem to indicate that he feels that what he has described as a reign of terror at the hands of Christopher Dorner is finally over. The mayor said he wanted to express his sympathy and condolences to all of the victims' family members, people touched by this crime spree and this extreme violence which has been linked to Christopher Dorner. And then the mayor had a few more words to say, and then he quickly left. I ran after him. I ran up to one of the commanding officers here, Commander Andrew Smith, and I flat out asked Commander Smith, is Christopher Dorner alive or dead? What is his status? And Commander Smith said, we believe he is dead. We believe he was in that cabin up in the mountains, which burned. We believe he was burned up in that cabin. And he said investigators are now going through with a fine-tooth comb. They're going to pick through the ashes and the wreckage and the rubble. They're going to look for his remains. But when and if those remains are identified as Christopher Dorner's, that word will be coming from the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, which is now the lead investigative agency in this case. Although, as we know, this manhunt has been the effort of a multi-agency task force formed a few days ago, which included federal and local law enforcement agencies, the FBI, the U.S. Marshals Service, as well as Riverside PD, Irvine PD, the LAPD, of course, and now the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department. So all of this is unfolding unbelievably in the last few hours. There are no further press conferences scheduled here this evening, but you never know what's going to happen. We're going to be here throughout the night. This is, of course, Command Central and the point of reference for all information coming out in this case. So we will continue to watch and monitor the situation out here. For now, reporting live at LAPD headquarters in downtown Los Angeles, I'm Chris Wolf. Sharon, Micah, back to you.
Chris, quickly before you go, what's the level of visible security at LAPD headquarters at the moment? We know the last couple of days it's been ramped up. You've seen officers on every corner and on the roof of the building and adjacent buildings. What do you see at the moment?
Yeah. Still see that out here, Micah. Still saw officers around the perimeter at different points, extra officers stationed inside the lobby and the main entrance of the headquarters here. So we have still seen that ramped up security out here. Yes.
All right, Chris Wolf with us from LAPD headquarters downtown. Thank you. And again to Christina Pascucci, who is in Big Bear at the Sheriff's Department headquarters there, very close to Big Bear Lake, with new reporting on the scenario involving the hostages that Chris Dorner allegedly took before stealing a truck. Christina?
That's right. Good evening, Micah. Well, we're learning from this law enforcement official who does not want to be identified that these two women were part of a cleaning crew entering the cabin to clean it. The owners of the cabin were not in the area. They were concerned. They wanted to make sure everything was okay. So the women go in, and to their surprise and utter shock, disbelief, horror, any emotion you can imagine, Chris Dorner, according to this source, was inside that cabin and met them, tied them up subsequently with zip ties. Those women then are now okay. They're inside right now, the headquarters. We expect to see them come out soon. You can see, as I'm looking at this area, it's all blocked off. There are police all around the parking lot making sure that we cannot get too close to the doors we believe these women will be exiting from. So good news, they are not physically harmed, emotionally, mentally. That might be a whole other story. But we're also hearing, according to this source, that after these two women were tied up, Christopher Dorner allegedly stole their car. That's when he crashed it down the road. And then shortly after that is when we're hearing that he carjacked this pickup truck. Media reports are saying the man in that pickup was a guy named Rick. He was dressed in full camo, according to the man whose truck it was, and very heavily armed. He pointed the gun, Christopher Dorner, at this man allegedly and told him to get out of the truck. Now, this law enforcement official told me that we should be hearing more soon. They're changing over the shifts right now with the sheriff's deputies, and they're all getting debriefed, and we expect to hear much more in the coming minutes and hours, and we'll bring it to you. But like I said, a lot of tension. We're starting to see some movement around the only two exits from sheriff's headquarters here, indicating possibly these women who are being interviewed by sheriff's officials will be coming out, and we'll bring that to you as it happens.
So to clarify, Christina, that's new information. Dorner allegedly stole two cars. First, the house cleaner's car, Micah, and then a truck.
That's correct, Micah. That's what this law enforcement official tells us. He said that first, Christopher Dorner took this car that these cleaning ladies were in or had driven to the location, took that car, crashed it, and then shortly after is when he carjacked that second truck.
Okay, that is new information because at one point, well, just moments ago before you reported that, we thought there was only one car involved that was reported stolen, and so it continues to develop this story on the manhunt for Chris Dorner, which we believe at this point is over, but still waiting for confirmation from the lead agency, the San Bernardino Sheriff's Department, where Christina Pascucci is. We'll continue to check in with her, and in the meantime, we want to talk with our guest here on set, Steve Moore, who's been with us all afternoon, former FBI agent. With the way that everybody's acting, it sure seems like it is over.
I'm believing the actions of the people who are closest to the house. If you look at how the San Bernardino County Sheriff's deputies are acting, they're convinced it's over. They were closest to the scene. I'm judging by their actions and their department's actions, it's over. Obviously, we're getting conflicting information on some other things. If these two women were held for 2 days in a house, why weren't they reported missing? I mean, you would think that two missing women in San Bernardino who were going to clean a house in the Big Bear area would be a big clue. So either they weren't reported missing or they weren't held for 2 days.
And it also makes you wonder, with so many vacation rentals up there, that would have been, surmising that he took them hostage right after his truck was found burning, that would have been leading right into a weekend where there's snowfall. So the likelihood that nobody's going to be in that home over the weekend, that scenario doesn't jive either. So you have to, when you put the pieces together, believe that maybe they were taken hostage a relatively short time ago.
That's where I'd go with this. And again, this will all, speaking of peeling the onion, this will all become clear as we do things like find the rental records for that house. Who was the last person in it? That type of thing. These are questions that are going to have to be answered over the next few days.
You know, it really is interesting how this all unfolded, and I think that one of the most fascinating parts, although, you know, all aspects of this manhunt have been really riveting and at the same time frightening for the general public, but at the very end of it all, when they have those battering rams up there, SWAT, and they're peeling back, as Andrew Blankstein reported, peeling back the walls like an onion. It's just the visual of that is something that I don't think we've ever heard of, and I know those are tactical situations that perhaps that we don't hear of.
Those are pretty new tactics, knocking down buildings with cars. I mean, there is law enforcement, especially the tactical teams, have been getting armored vehicles for a while, and San Bernardino certainly has some. I've trained with their SWAT team. They're a very capable department.
So again, these are images from about 40 minutes ago. That cabin in Seven Oaks burning. There is not much left of it. I believe we have a map that we can go to show you the proximity of the carjacking versus the final showdown here, what we believe is the final showdown in Seven Oaks. Dorner, as we know now, stole a truck in the Big Bear area at gunpoint, and when that truck was spotted some 20 miles away near Seven Oaks by Fish and Wildlife officials, Dorner jumped out of the truck, and officers say he opened fire on them and fled on foot and barricaded himself inside the cabin that you now see burning. And there was gunfire exchanged shortly after he was spotted by Fish and Wildlife. That gunfire happened with the backup, and the backup happened to be San Bernardino County Sheriff's deputies, and that's when those two deputies were shot. And they've been dealing with this cabin scenario ever since in Seven Oaks. And again, to report again, tragically, one of those deputies died as a result of the gunshot wounds. Another appears as though he's going to survive. We're told at last point he's in surgery, and that was just about a half an hour ago.
And what's really been terrorizing Southern California for the last 9 days, if you will, when it comes to this Dorner manhunt, even from last week when the manhunt really took down to the ground and air on Thursday, it now coming to an end here in Big Bear, where for at one point or another we thought maybe perhaps, and many people were speculating, that perhaps he was no longer in the area, and Steve, at one point they had scaled down from what had been some 200 law enforcement combing that area to today somewhere around 25, 30?
Which is, again, like we were speaking before, judging by their actions, you can determine what they believe.
Right.
If they believed that there was a chance he was still there, they would not have taken 90% of their resources out. I have spoken to law enforcement officers, FBI agents this week, and not a single one thought that he would still be in Big Bear. Not one that I spoke to.
How about that?
So, again, he did not follow the script.
No, he didn't. And that's what made it so difficult for investigators.
Right.
As we've been talking, you like to some degree, predict what their next move might be. But there was no script here. You had a manifesto, and he laid it out, and Chief Beck said, we've got to take him at his word for it. This is what he plans to do, and we believe him. But then there's the behavior.
Well, let me put it to you this way, Micah. Reading the manifesto and believing that he was high-speed, low-drag special forces guy, he gets his truck broken down in the woods and can't get off the hill for 5 days. He isn't as spiffy as he wanted us to believe, and I think that's part of it. I think law enforcement thought he was much more, obviously he was capable of violence, but capable of dealing with his situation, not so much.
The contingency factor.
Yeah, we want to go to Chip Yost. He's able to go up a little further the mountain. He's in Angeles Oaks. Chip, he's on the phone with us right now. What can you tell us?
Yeah, they've let us go a bit farther up the mountain here, several miles at Angeles Oaks, and they have the road blocked off here. But obviously the situation has cleared safety-wise. They've let all the residents that live up this way also go as far as we have up here to Angeles Oaks. As we were coming up the hill, what I can tell you is we saw dozens of law enforcement vehicles coming down. So that tells you right there that it looks like the situation is clear at the house. We have not, on our end, and I haven't been able to listen in to everything you've been reporting on the air as we've been making our way up the hill, but we have not as of yet gotten 100% confirmation that Christopher Dorner is the person in the cabin and that he has been confirmed dead, but we are hearing reports that is what is believed to be the case at this point, which is why we're seeing kind of a downgrade in the security level and the officers going down the hill. And you can see, draw your own conclusions from the video of Sky 5 HD when you look at that cabin and what's going on. Unfortunately, what we also have heard up here, which you've reported as well, is that of those two deputies shot, one of them has passed away. They've not ID'd that deputy as of yet, but what we were told by Cindy Bachman of the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department a little while ago down at the bottom of the hill is that those deputies were involved in a firefight with Christopher Dorner, or the man believed to be Christopher Dorner, inside that cabin when they were shot. And we also have heard now from the Forest Service, we had heard that report about a Forest Service member also possibly being involved in some sort of gunfire with Christopher Dorner. I understand from our desk that the Forest Service has put out a release and confirmed that when this whole thing started near that cabin, that a Forest Service member saw Dorner. Dorner got out of this car that he apparently stolen, opened fire on the Forest Service member, but did not hit the Forest Service member, and that's when he ran off into that cabin. That's when the standoff started, and then shortly thereafter is where the gunfire happened. Also, if you recall, when we interviewed Cindy Bachman a little while ago, there were apparently at least two exchanges of heavy gunfire between Christopher Dorner and the deputies that had that cabin surrounded. There was the first volley that apparently is the one that got those two deputies hit. One of the deputies sent to the hospital, still in the hospital, being taken care of. The other one was later pronounced dead. There was some time lapse and then some more gunfire and apparently some sort of smoke device, a smoke bomb possibly, either used by Christopher Dorner or used by those officers on the outside. We don't know. Then sometime after that is when the fire started. Whether or not that smoke device caused the fire, started the fire, that's still unclear of, but somebody had a smoke bomb, and there was talk that it may have been Christopher Dorner. When we asked Cindy Bachman that, she couldn't confirm whether it was Christopher Dorner who had the smoke bomb or the officers on the outside, but sometime after that is when the fire started, and as you can see from the video from Sky 5 HD, it's not likely who was ever in there survived it.
Yeah, and to continue that timeline, officers there on scene report hearing one gunshot, a single gunshot, as that cabin was engulfing in flames. Chip Yost for us in Angeles Oaks, which is now much closer to the scene here in Seven Oaks, some 3 or 4 miles up Highway 38. So they're allowing the reporters to move ever closer to a scene where it appears, by all accounts, that the threat has been neutralized.
All right, and as we say that, of course, we are waiting for, I want to make sure that everybody that is watching us, that the Dorner manhunt, we are still waiting for a confirmation on a body in there, for that body to be ID'd as Christopher Dorner himself. There could possibly be an escape route from that cabin. So if he did survive or set this place on fire, and that could be somebody else in there, we simply do not know. Only the police, only the San Bernardino Sheriff's Department, the lead agency on this, will be able to confirm with us for sure whether or not that is Christopher Dorner that is in that cabin, if indeed he is dead or alive. That, at this point, we are still waiting confirmation for.
And the tragedy surrounding that shootout that Chip was just describing, involving 2 sheriff's deputies, one of them dead. Stephen Chase live at Loma Linda University Medical Center, where the second deputy, we understand, is in surgery. And Stephen, we understand that deputy will survive?
You know what, from what we understand, that is the expectation. That deputy underwent surgery earlier today for injuries that he sustained during that wild gun battle with Christopher Dorner. I'm going to move out of the way here, and you can see that here at Loma Linda University Medical Center, there is a huge presence of law enforcement officers here at the scene. It's been a very sad and emotional scene here at the medical center. Behind me, you can see the law enforcement's here. More officers were here on scene earlier today, but the San Bernardino County's coroner's office was here to take the body of the sheriff's deputy killed. So a large law enforcement procession followed the coroner's vehicle and left. Now, we also have video from earlier today of helicopters arriving here at the hospital with the 2 deputies who were shot. Officers also arriving on the scene to support the deputies. Again, after today's gunfire near Big Bear, 2 San Bernardino deputies were shot. Shortly after, both were airlifted and brought to the hospital. We know one of the deputies has died here at the hospital. We don't know the identities of the deputies. That information has yet to be released. But we are told, Micah, that the second deputy underwent surgery, and that deputy's present condition unknown at the time being. Now, we are going to stay here on site to get the very latest here at Loma Linda University Medical Center, and we'll make sure to bring you that information as quickly as possible. You can also go to our website at ktla.com for the very latest. Reporting live, Stephen Chase, KTLA 5, Micah and Cher. I'll send it back to you, too.
Okay, Stephen Chase, thank you. You are watching the KTLA News here at 6:30. And the word from Sheriff McMahon is that that second deputy is expected to survive. Those were his words. He is expected to survive. Although he's in surgery, they do expect that he will survive, though the second deputy involved in that shootout has died.
It is unfortunate that is exactly what happened. That first deputy that was involved in that shootout has died over at Loma Linda Medical Center, and you know, it is just added to the 3 that have already. We're talking 2 officers that were killed, as well as the engaged couple, and then 3 others that you know, were almost killed in this. So it really has been such a precarious situation for so many here in Southern California that have been riveted by this story, and at the same time terrified.
All of a sudden, after several days of no new developments in the whereabouts of Chris Dorner, this entire thing broke loose just after noon today, when one of the 2 housekeepers that Chris Dorner allegedly took hostage inside a cabin in Big Bear was able to break free and call 911. And there started the chase after reports following that hostage taking that there was a white pickup truck that had been carjacked at gunpoint by a man matching the description of Dorner in the Big Bear area, very close to the golf course up there, very close to Clubview Drive, which is very close to where his truck was found burning. Then you had the Be on the Lookout and authorities all over that mountain looking for a white pickup truck, and it was actually Fish and Wildlife officials some 20 miles outside Big Bear who spotted what they thought they saw to be Chris Dorner in that white pickup truck heading off the mountain on the 38. They made a U-turn, followed him, and that's where the firefight began here in the Seven Oaks area. ultimately with suspect Dorner believed to be holed up in a cabin that is now burned to the ground, and authorities on scene saying one gunshot they heard, a single gunshot inside that cabin. They have yet to confirm that Chris Dorner was in there. They have yet to confirm that he's dead. But officers on the scene telling reporters, some of them that were allowed in, not allowed in, but they happened to be there before the area was cordoned off, that this is Dorner's last stand.
As we continue to follow this breaking news, as we have been all afternoon long, we want to turn our attention just for a brief moment to Vera Jimenez. Vera Jimenez has got a look at the weather for us and some changes that are on our way, and then we'll get back to the manhunt, the Dorner manhunt developments as well.
Absolutely, Cher. Thank you. And good evening, everyone. Well, as the situation continues to develop over Seven Oaks, we are going to begin with our weather there as we take a look at the conditions that are going to be unfolding there. Weather-wise, we are looking at about 26 degrees tonight by midnight. By 6 a.m., we're looking at 22 degrees. And by tomorrow afternoon, the temperatures are only going to warm up to about 44. We are going to see clear conditions and cold tonight. By tomorrow afternoon, it is still going to be rather chilly. The winds will be light out of the east at about 5 to 10 miles per hour. So this is what the personnel there can expect tonight into tomorrow afternoon. Back here locally near the airport, we're looking at 55 degrees, Fullerton 60. Ontario 57 and 56 if you happen to be in the city of Camarillo. We're also looking at temperatures near the Big Bear Lake area. Right now it's 27 degrees there, 57 in Santa Ana, 50 in Lancaster, and 56 for Van Nuys. We still have a ridge of high pressure that is building. The winds are still out of the north. We are going to continue to see cold nights and warmer afternoons as that ridge continues to develop. Temperatures tomorrow will crawl back into the average range, and we'll have more details on that coming up in a bit. Right now, we're going to send it back to you.
All right, Vera, thank you. The pictures that you've been looking at over here from earlier this afternoon of the cabin where Dorner was believed to be holed up, set on fire and burning to the ground. Of course, we don't have those live pictures for you right now, as everybody else as well, because of the darkness that has come on there. But this is what it looked like earlier at the height of that fire. And of course, Steve Moore from the FBI, former FBI agent, has been on set with us all afternoon, and we've been speculating what's happened, maybe what could have happened. Could he have escaped? Is he there? Is he dead? Really, we can't do any of that confirmation whatsoever until it comes from the lead agency. But there really is certainly a lot of information pointing to the fact that, well, what is going on over there? You tell me.
Well, I can only read now the body language and the actions of the San Bernardino County Sheriff's officers in the department, and it appears that they are completely convinced that there is no threat to them or the local area now, which would mean that they have no fear that Dorner is out and about and alive.
What you're referring to is video we saw taken shortly before nightfall when Sky 5 was still live over the scene, and we saw that cabin burning. And we saw a couple of officers walking on the road right adjacent to that cabin and walking nonchalantly.
Strolling.
And strolling, that told you a whole lot.
Yes, it did. And then the last thing I think I saw before Tim had to leave was I believe I saw the fire trucks at the side of the building, which would indicate that they're not going to risk their brothers in the fire department to put something out when they believe somebody might be in there and armed. So from everything I've seen, they are not concerned that there is a man out in the woods who might be armed and dangerous.
You know, and of course, to see that kind of casual stance that we've been talking about, it's not something we've seen any law enforcement in that kind of a casual stance ever since this manhunt began last Thursday.
Right, exactly.
And so we await word. And you look at a map now, and this shows you a little bit of the proximity of what happened. The truck stolen, you see that indication there would be in the Big Bear Lake area, and then you follow that Highway 38 that sweeps all the way out around over Onyx Summit and then heads west toward Angeles Oaks. That's where you see the truck found, and that's where the barricade situation was in the Seven Oaks Road area, which is just off Highway 38 in a very remote area as you're coming off the mountain there that takes you sort of into the Mentone area. So a sense of the proximity of things as they played out today, beginning shortly after noon. And we continue to follow the developments from the scene there as well from the LAPD headquarters in downtown Los Angeles. Chris Wolf is there for us live with an update. Chris?
That's right, Micah. We just got word that there will indeed be a press conference here tonight at 9 p.m. I'm assuming KTLA will be carrying that live, of course. We have been following this all afternoon for the last several hours, this developing story that apparently the fugitive, former police officer and naval reservist Christopher Dorner is dead. Many people believe he is dead, although that has not been yet confirmed. Officers here believe he was in that cabin that burned to the ground, and now investigators are going to go through the wreckage and the ashes and look for his remains and try to identify that. And from what we've been told here at LAPD headquarters, that final word about Christopher Dorner's death would be coming from the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, which is now the lead investigative agency in all of this, although a multi-agency task force is involved. Federal officials with the FBI, U.S. Marshals Service, and local officials with several different agencies throughout Southern California have been involved in this massive manhunt for the last several days, all apparently coming to an end, a very fiery end tonight in the mountains in the Big Bear area. Surprisingly, Mayor Villaraigosa came out. We had no forewarning of his comments, but he came out a short time ago to say that he wanted to praise all of the officers and the law enforcement officials involved in this effort over the last several days. And he also wanted to offer his condolences and sympathies to the victims' family members, people who were touched by this violence associated with Christopher Dorner. We've been following the fact that the effort up there in the Big Bear area was scaled down. I know Cher and Micah, you mentioned this a short time ago, that at one point there were hundreds of officers up there from different agencies, and then it was scaled back because investigators simply did not believe that Dorner had remained in the area. In fact, a member of the U.S. Marshals Service had said he believed that Dorner had fled to Mexico with all of his investigative tactics, and his investigation led him to believe that Dorner had fled to Mexico, that apparently Dorner's driver's license and some credit cards and other personal items had been found at the U.S.-Mexico border, so he fully believed Dorner was in Mexico. However, we now know it appears that he was in the Big Bear area this whole time, that he apparently held these people hostage since Thursday, tying up those housekeepers in that cabin, and then at some point allegedly stole this truck, which eventually led to this shootout and fiery end today in the Big Bear area. Again, a press conference here at LAPD headquarters is planned for 9 p.m. tonight. We will be here. We will bring that to you probably live. We're now reporting live at LAPD headquarters. I'm Chris Wolf. Micah, Cher, back to you.
All right, Chris Wolf standing by for us for the very latest there at LAPD headquarters in downtown LA. We want to now go back up to the area where this all went down today. Angeles Oaks, Chip Yost has now been able to establish a shot there and give us more information from his vantage point. Chip? It seems that we don't have Chip Yost just at the moment, but Chip had spent a better part of the day over at Highway 38, which was closed down for some time, along with two other highways that go into the area, 18 and 330, that were closed down, and basically residents were going through checkpoints. It was such a strange and surreal scene to watch live. And then he, as part of some of the other media, were able to get a little further up that mountain than the residents, but now we understand that Chip has made it up even further, where we believe that obviously we're going to try and get to that cabin as close as we can in Angeles Oaks. So we'll get to Chip Yost in just a moment for an update in that area.
But moving in closer, he is to that scene there in Seven Oaks, Angeles Oaks, just a few miles up Highway 38. Steve Moore, we've been watching this unfold for the last couple of days, and as we've been saying, most everybody had a belief that he left the mountain. Obviously, he didn't. What did you think when you were watching this play out? I know you've been watching this closely. I mean, did you have a sense that he left? Did you have a sense that he'd taken somebody hostage? That never came into the conversation.
No, it didn't. It's always a possibility that he's up there holding somebody hostage, but you have to believe that with 200 some officers up there, you could run that down pretty carefully. I was no different than anyone else in believing that he was no longer on that mountain. I believed he would stay within about an hour of LA City so that he could quickly attack the way his manifesto said he would, and then return to a place of relative security. And I believe he had planned those out. But when his truck axle broke, what we found out is he didn't have a backup. He was unable to adapt and improvise.
All right, we want to now go to Chip Yost. He has established that shot for us, and he's gotten closer to the scene of that cabin in Angeles Oaks. Chip?
Yeah, we're now on Highway 38. We've moved up the road a bit. If you know the area, we're right in front of the parking lot of the Country Store restaurant here. This is as far as they're letting us go now, but we're a lot closer than we were. And as we told you before, you look at this line, there's been a line of vehicles coming through here. Almost every one of them have been law enforcement vehicles, even some of the civilian vehicles. When you look inside, it's been law enforcement inside. It looks like they have cleared this area. It has been deemed safe, so they're letting people down the hill. I did talk to Cindy Bachman a little bit ago, because the big question right now is, was that Christopher Dorner inside that cabin that was burning, and is he dead or alive? I asked her that a moment ago. She said they still have not been able to go into the cabin as of yet because it's too hot, but presumably from everything we're seeing, all these vehicles, all these armored cars, we've actually seen a couple of armored cars come through here as well. All these vehicles leaving the area tells us that it has been deemed safe up here. Here you see another unit. This is a SWAT unit. I can't tell which department this one is from, but we've actually seen a couple of different SWAT units from different departments coming down the hill. So it looks like this issue, this manhunt with Christopher Dorner, is likely, hopefully, over at this point, but we will not know for sure until they're able to get inside that cabin that was burning. And if you're just joining us and you don't know what's been going on all day, kind of give you a little bit of how this all happened, how this all started. We're still piecing this together as we go along during the day, but what we understand is that there was a report of a stolen car. Christopher Dorner was believed to be in that stolen car. There goes a San Bernardino police SWAT team. About 5 minutes ago, we saw a Riverside SWAT vehicle leave, and as I was coming up the hill, we saw a San Bernardino County Sheriff's SWAT vehicle leave. But earlier in the day, there was a sighting of Christopher Dorner. We've since learned that he was holed up in a cabin up closer to Big Bear when some cleaning ladies, we understand, came into the cabin at some point. We still don't know the exact time they came in. Was that today? Was it Thursday? Have they been held hostage for days, or did they just get held hostage today? We understand they were tied up with zip ties. But whatever the case, today, Christopher Dorner took off, and one of the cars apparently stolen from that area he was in started coming down the hill. As he was coming down the hill, someone with the Forest Service saw the car he was in after it had been reported stolen, noticed that it may have been Christopher Dorner. Dorner gets out of the car, from what we're told at this point, opens fire on that Forest Service officer. Luckily, that Forest Service officer was not hit. However, when he got out of the car, he was in this area just up the road here, the Seven Oaks area, we believe, runs to a cabin. That's where a standoff ensues. There was a shootout between Dorner and a lot of deputies in that search party that had been looking for him for days. 2 San Bernardino County Sheriff's deputies were hit in that shootout. One of them, unfortunately, has passed away. The other is in the hospital. Then there was a time lapse, some time lapse in between that gunfire. Some more gunfire erupts a little later. A smoke bomb goes off at some point, we're told. We don't know yet if that smoke bomb was set off by Christopher Dorner, or the man believed to be Christopher Dorner, or set off by those sheriff's deputies outside. We asked that question. The sheriff's department wasn't sure, but they did say some sort of smoke bomb went off. There was more gunfire exchanged. Sometime after that is when a fire started in that cabin. That fire burned for a long time, and as you could see from some of those images from Sky 5 HD, it almost destroyed that cabin that they believe Christopher Dorner was in. They did not believe it was a diversion. They did not believe the man in that cabin who was firing at deputies escaped. They believe he is still in there. However, as I said a minute ago, they cannot go in there and find out for sure who it is, if the person's dead
Chip,
or alive.
I'm going to have to interrupt you there and
bring
our viewers confirmation through our source, Mary Beth McDade, confirming through her source at the LAPD that Christopher Dorner has been identified as the individual in that cabin and that he is dead. Christopher Dorner is dead, according to the LAPD.
Yeah, it is something that we have been speculating and waiting for that confirmation. We thought that maybe that confirmation would come from the San Bernardino Sheriff's Department, but we are getting, as you mentioned again, from Mary Beth McDade, our KTLA reporter, confirming through her sources that Christopher Dorner is indeed dead.
There was a sense that this had come to a conclusion when we saw the mayor come outside LAPD and brief the media. He didn't say one way or the other, but all roads pointed toward that eventuality, and we are now confirming through the LAPD that Christopher Dorner is dead.
We do want to play some cell phone video for you right now that we are able to upload from two snowboarders that were driving down Highway 38 when they came across the scene where Dorner's stolen pickup truck was stopped and that gunfire erupted. Take a look.
Get down, get down.
Wow. The sheer number of rounds fired in what sounded like automatic weapons and an exchange of gunfire in Seven Oaks, very near Angeles Oaks in the San Bernardino National Forest, where the manhunt for Chris Dorner has come to an end, and we are reporting through sources at the LAPD that Chris Dorner is in fact dead on scene there in Seven Oaks at that cabin that went up in flames where the standoff ensued early this afternoon.
That's right. If we do want to take a look again at some of that video where we believe that that Dorner was holed up and now confirmed that he is dead, of that cabin on fire. When we were talking to our partner over at the LA Times, Andrew Blankstein, he reported that something that I keep on bringing up because I find it so interesting and at the same time fascinating and terrifying of how SWAT went about trying to close in on Christopher Dorner. And that being that they used equipment to try and peel back layers of that house and walls of that house like an onion, and then heard, according to Andrew Blankstein, one gunshot wound, and then that's when the fire began.
This story riveted an entire region for 9 days. And now we know that Chris Dorner is dead. And it reminds you of a little bit of what happened in Washington, D.C. 11 years ago in the search for the snipers and their reign of terror, and an entire community on edge, not knowing what's next, not knowing what to expect, but awaiting for something, awaiting some development. And we had heard nothing for several days here after seeing his truck on fire in the forest in Big Bear until today, just after noon, when this gunfire started in the Seven Oaks area between San Bernardino County Sheriff's deputies and Chris Dorner, who again we are now confirming through the LAPD has died.
That's right. Again, it was a 9-day saga that terrified and transfixed many of us here, so many people here in Southern California, from an apparent revenge double murder of a couple in Irvine on Super Bowl Sunday to today's flame-filled finale and final chapter in the San Bernardino Mountains. It really has been quite, like we said, people have been transfixed by this manhunt.
Right now, KTLA's Lynette Romero is going to take a look at the timeline of the manhunt for Christopher Dorner.
Here's the tale of the timeline. February 7th, 2005, Christopher Dorner officially becomes an officer with the Los Angeles Police Department. May 26, 2006, Dorner completes an anti-terrorism course in the U.S. Navy with satisfactory performance before being deployed to Afghanistan. 2008, a year after returning to the LAPD, Dorner files a report of excessive force by his training officer during an arrest and is subsequently relieved of his police duties following an LAPD disciplinary hearing. And then years go by without public incident until Sunday, February 3, 2013, when Monica Kwan and Keith Lawrence were found shot to death in their car at an Irvine parking structure. Police later discovered that Kwan was the daughter of an ex-LAPD captain who represented Dorner in the disciplinary hearings that resulted in his firing from the LAPD. The following day, February 4th, some of Dorner's belongings, including police equipment, are found in a trash bin in the San Diego area community of National City. February 6th, a man matching Dorner's description tries to steal a 47-foot boat from a San Diego marina, but the engine wouldn't start. An 81-year-old man on the boat was tied up but unhurt. The next day, February 7th, several incidents. First in Corona, 2 LAPD officers assigned to protect a person named in Dorner's manifesto chase a vehicle they believe to be Dorner's. One officer is grazed in the forehead during a shootout. The gunman flees. A short time later in Riverside, a gunman believed to be Dorner ambushes 2 Riverside police officers who've stopped at a red light during a routine patrol. Officer Michael Crane is killed. The second officer seriously wounded. A short time later in Torrance, LAPD officers protecting someone listed in Dorner's manifesto opened fire on a truck they mistakenly believed to be Dorner's. 2 women are injured. A few blocks away, Torrance police are involved in a second shooting involving a different truck they mistakenly believed to be Dorner's. The driver suffers minor injuries. That afternoon, police discovered Dorner's burned pickup truck near Big Bear. Police spend the weekend searching the mountain community, but they find no trace of Dorner. The manhunt continues through the weekend. Sunday, February 10th, Los Angeles Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa announces a $1 million reward for any information leading to the arrest and conviction of Dorner.
We will not tolerate anyone undermining the security, the tranquility of our neighborhoods and our communities.
Monday, February 11th, the Riverside DA files murder charges against the rogue ex-cop in connection with the February 7th shootings. New surveillance video surfaces Monday evening of Dorner inside a South Bay sports chalet purchasing scuba equipment. The images were recorded on February 1st, 2 days before the murders of Monica Kwan and Keith Lawrence in Irvine.
And to continue the timeline, we have been reporting for the last several minutes through a source at LAPD confirming that the body of Christopher Dorner has been found inside that cabin in Seven Oaks, where the standoff ensued shortly after noon today.
Certainly so many questions as to what has gone on the past few days, from whether or not he had hostages since Thursday holed up in that cabin, whether those hostages were today, whether he took one truck or another. I mean, there are just so many things to comb through. And at this point, we're awaiting a press conference from Cindy Bachman, who's the public information officer with the San Bernardino Sheriff's Department, to also confirm, along with what we've already confirmed with the LAPD, that in fact Christopher Dorner is dead and that the manhunt is over. But again, still waiting for that confirmation now from the San Bernardino Sheriff's Department, even though we've already gotten from one source with the LAPD.
Things turned very quickly just after 5 o'clock this afternoon. There was a temporary flight restriction put in place shortly before that. So we stopped showing live pictures of this cabin standoff there in Seven Oaks and continued rolling videotape of the home burning, which is what you're looking at now. But then shortly after that, we saw officers very near that home that were, you could describe them as strolling down the street where that cabin sits as it was on fire, indicating that whatever the threat, it had been neutralized. And all of the pieces started to fall into place, and the things we were watching happen, the roads being reopened, reporters allowed to move ever closer to this scene. They're now positioned in Angeles Oaks, as Cher mentioned, awaiting a press conference from the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, and what we presume will be confirmation from them that Dorner is in fact dead, though again we're reporting through a source at the LAPD that in fact Christopher Dorner is dead.
And something that we also need to focus on as well is the fact that 4 people have lost their lives in the last 9 days. Monica Kwan and Keith Lawrence, newly engaged couple, and of course Officer Crane. And now today, a deputy involved in a shootout also lost his life. It is tragic. It is terrified the entire Southern California community. And again, as we said earlier, also transfixed the community as we waited for developments and as this course, layer upon layer kept on unfolding. With today, the developments and the fire at this cabin. As you're looking at live pictures right now as they set up for that press conference from the San Bernardino Sheriff's Department and awaiting for what they're going to say about the situation at that cabin in Seven Oaks.
Seven Oaks. And as night has fallen in that mountain community there and the surrounding communities, in particular Big Bear, which has been on edge for several days now since that truck of Dorner's was spotted burning on the Fire Road 2N10, which is just above the community of Big Bear Lake to the south, up into the hills a ways. They can breathe a sigh of relief tonight. They can exhale and know that this nightmare is over. That authorities got their man. And it didn't end the way Chris Dorner said it would in his manifesto. It sounds like, from everything we're hearing, that he took his own life, perhaps in the basement of that cabin just before it started burning. But the reports from the scene were that officers heard a single gunshot in that cabin shortly before it went up in flames. Here's Chip live.
Need some tape? Yeah, right now we're waiting for Cindy Bachman with the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department. You see all this activity here, all the media. We're setting up a microphone stand. Just behind that microphone stand in a car is Cindy Bachman. She's the spokesperson for the Sheriff's Department. She's waiting to get confirmation on this report we've been hearing that Christopher Dorner is dead and some other information that she'll be able to share with us. When I last talked to her about 10 minutes ago or so, she told me that they were waiting to make entry into that cabin because of the heat. They could not at this point. But she is on the phone, been on the phone trying to get confirmation. But one issue up here that they've been having periodically and we've been having is cell coverage. We're in an area right now where we're actually getting decent coverage, but the people she's trying to talk to up in Seven Oaks, we don't know how good their coverage is. So there have been some communication issues getting information from one place to the other. But it does look like, from all indications, that whatever the case, whoever was in that cabin is dead. If it was Christopher Dorner or someone else, all indications are it was Christopher Dorner, though, because when we were up here, as you saw about 5 minutes ago or so, 5-10 minutes ago or so, dozens and dozens of law enforcement officers who were up on that hill, who have been part of this search party, were making their way down the hill. So we are waiting for this news conference to start, hopefully any minute now, where we'll get some new information and some confirmation as to whether or not this manhunt for Chris Dorner is officially over. Let's hope that's the case, but we should hear shortly. Reporting live, I'll send it back to you guys for now.
And Chip, hopefully we can also get a little more insight as well as to what went down at that cabin. Steve Moore, former FBI, is that something that we might be able to hear right about now? What happened and what ensued in those final moments at the cabin at this point?
I'd be surprised if we heard it right
Yeah,
away.
I know she's been trying to get that information because we've been asking her all those questions, specifically, was there a smoke, or who used that smoke bomb? Remember, we heard the report about the smoke bomb. She did say she heard the report about the smoke bomb, that there was some sort of smoke bomb. Didn't know if it was Christopher Dorner or the deputies who detonated that smoke bomb. And there are some other issues as far as where the shooting occurred that would seem to be most of it from the cabin. Christopher Dorner being inside the cabin, the deputies being outside, but there was some gunfire on the road. Remember that when Christopher Dorner was coming down the hill in that stolen car, it was a Forest Service officer, from what we're told, who first spotted him, and Christopher Dorner opened fire on that Forest Service officer. We got at our assignment desk, got that information from the Forest Service. She was not able to confirm that during our last talk, so she's making a lot of calls trying to confirm all these different reports that are out there to see we can get a kind of a solid hold, a solid feel for what exactly happened up there.
Okay, Chip Yosforce in Angeles Oaks as we await a press conference from spokesperson Cindy Bachman with the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department on what we presume will be confirmation from them, their department, that Dorner is dead. Our source within the LAPD indicating that Christopher Dorner is in fact dead. As we remain on the air here with the KTLA News at the top of the 7 o'clock hour in lieu of regular programming to bring you the continuous coverage of this manhunt for Chris Dorner and what we believe is the end of this manhunt in the small and isolated community of Seven Oaks off Highway 38, very near Big Bear Lake, where his truck was spotted burning this past Thursday.
Yeah, we want to bring in, of course, once again, former FBI agent Steve Moore to give us a little bit more of an expert insight into this entire situation that went down today. Steve?
Yeah, this is going to take days, if not weeks, for the entire story to come out second by second, minute by minute. This is something that they're going to have to debrief, interview everybody involved, and come up with a cohesive whole. And that'll take days, if not weeks, for us to get an actual idea of the events second by second.
You know, when they say, when we're saying that it's been confirmed by the LAPD that he's dead, I mean, obviously, you know, there have been questions. Oh, how could that possibly be if he's in the house, he'd been burned, they have no dental records? I mean, can it just be all of a sudden, just like that, they can confirm him dead?
I would have to say, based on the totality of the evidence, is what they're going on. Obviously, the body is likely burned. We already know he doesn't have his ID on him because it's been strewn throughout Southern California. My guess is that absent any scars or identifying marks, which is a possibility, they are taking it on the totality of the evidence.
And they're not in a position in that standoff to where they're going to enter that cabin under any circumstances that early in the standoff, you would say.
It is very unusual. And to enter the cabin within 2 hours after he goes in would be what we would call an exigent entry. There's usually what we call an emergency SWAT team. While one team practices for a regular entry, the emergency team stands by for an exigent circumstance, like somebody pointing a gun at a hostage. I don't know what their circumstances were. I wasn't on the ground, so I can't comment on why they went in so quickly. But something convinced them that they needed to do it right then and not wait.
You know, as we await this press conference over there, you know, the scenes that we saw over the past couple of days, you know, when it was snowing and the manhunt was really at the very beginning of its height, they tried to comb everything, but of course, understandably, at one point or another, had to call the search off because of the weather, and that possibly, wouldn't you think, give Dorner the advantage?
I think the snowstorm probably is responsible for him keeping out of law enforcement's hands as long as he did. And you both made good points earlier about this. It's one thing to search for him. It's another thing to kick in doors of houses for which you don't have a search warrant. It is difficult legally and physically to clear all those houses there. You do what you can, but nobody says that this is going to be a 100% guarantee.
And that's certainly something that Dorner would know, or would have known, because he was trained by the same people that were looking for him. And so if there was no forced entry, they'll perhaps pass it by, and possibly why he was able to survive in the conditions that were there in Big Bear, and also at this point elude them for so long.
I think that's exactly it.
We continue our coverage here on KTLA. We have been on the air wall to wall, just making sure that you get the very latest information on what's been happening up in the mountains there. We are now in Angeles Oaks. Chip Yost, our reporter, has been able to make it up further up the mountain there, closer to the scene of where that cabin had burned, where we believe that Dorner had died. And we're awaiting a press conference now from Cindy Bachman, who is the public information officer for the San Bernardino Sheriff's Department.
Our reporter Mary Beth McDade again reporting that LAPD sources confirm that Chris Dorner is dead. That again coming from sources of Mary Beth McDade, our KTLA reporter, and that coming just about 15 or 20 minutes ago. And we're awaiting word from San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department again. They're in Angeles Oaks. Our helicopter left the scene just about 5:30 due to darkness, and we've been watching videotape of the last known images that we have of that cabin there and what was left of it burning there on screen left. That was at about 5:30 this evening, and in the last 90 minutes we've seen a sort of more relaxed posture from law enforcement in the area, now allowing residents back into the area. They've reopened Highway 38 for residents only. Not clear on 330 and 18. I would presume that once they reopen 38, which is much closer to that standoff area than either the 18 or the 330, that they would open all three to residents. And that is the belief at this point. But we can confirm that the 38 has been reopened to residents. All of that giving you indication that, again, whatever was threatening law enforcement in that area no longer is a threat.
You know, let's take a little bit of a tale of the timeline where Dorner's deadly rampage began after a double homicide in Irvine, followed by just multiple twists and turns in this case. As many of you who have been following this story have known, of course, starting with the double murder of Monica Kwan and her fiance, Monica Kwan, of course, being the daughter of Randall Kwan, who represented Dorner in a Board of Review case where Dorner had claimed excessive force and was found to have been lying and then fired. It created a vendetta. We never heard from Dorner at least public incident from Dorner until Sunday, February 3rd, 2013, with the killing of the Irvine couple of Monica Kwan and Keith Lawrence when they were shot to death in their car. From that point on, we also found, as we were talking about, he had gone to Torrance and bought scuba equipment. He had gone to San Diego to the yacht club to try and steal a boat, leaving trails and clues and whatnot around Southern California, which really seemed to try and deceive and divert police, even dropping his wallet by the San Diego airport.
That could have been intentional diversion.
Mm-hmm.
He may have wanted to get people going en masse, you know, student body right. Everybody go to this area so I can hit the other place. When he fired on the two officers in Riverside, my understanding is he was in an area of one of his potential victims. Mm-hmm. So he was trying to create diversions, obviously.
Yeah, and what did it all amount to? It turns out he was in Big Bear or the Big Bear area this entire time, much to the disbelief of so many people who were following this. And the late developments today, tragically, San Bernardino County Sheriff's deputy lost his life in a gun battle there in Seven Oaks, where this whole thing came to an end. Another deputy, we do expect to recover that from Sheriff McMahon. Stephen Chase is standing by at Loma Linda University Medical Center where that deputy is being treated tonight. Stephen?
That's right, Micah. That deputy, we're told, still in surgery. And the law enforcement presence here at Loma Linda University Medical Center has diminished a bit. Earlier, more deputies and officers were here to support the families of the deputies shot. Now, we know one deputy has been killed. The San Bernardino County Coroner's Office was here earlier to take that body of the sheriff's deputy killed. A large law enforcement procession followed the coroner's vehicle. Now, we have video from earlier today of helicopters arriving here at the hospital with the two deputies who were shot again after today's gunfight near Big Bear. Two San Bernardino deputies shot shortly after. Both were airlifted and brought to this hospital. Again, we know one of the deputies has died here at this hospital. We don't know the identities of the deputies. That information hasn't been released, but a spokesperson told us today how much this has really hurt the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department.
There's a large presence of law enforcement. Law enforcement is a very close-knit family. All law enforcement agencies is a brotherhood. So this is a very difficult day, again, for law enforcement.
Now, the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department tells us there will be no more updates provided here at the hospital, but we are going to remain on site just to get the latest update on that second deputy who is in surgery for the injuries that he sustained in that gun battle with Christopher Dorner. For now, I'll send it back to you, Mike and Sharon Hollywood.
All right, Stephan, thank you. She was, reporting for us there in Loma Linda on the condition of that officer there. Again, one officer lost his life this afternoon. Another one it should make it. And as we await this press conference in Angeles Oaks for someone who's really been giving the media all of the information that she can, Cindy Bachman with the San Bernardino Sheriff's Department.
And there have been developments as well on a couple of fronts, one of which involves the two housekeepers that we now know were taken hostage by Chris Dorner and zip-tied. Their car was stolen. That car then abandoned, unclear whether he crashed it intentionally or somehow it became disabled, but this all happening in the Big Bear area. And we do have a reporter up on the scene in Big Bear who's awaiting perhaps to speak to those two housekeepers. We know they've been questioned by authorities up there at the Sheriff's Department headquarters in Big Bear Lake. And we know that Christina is awaiting their departure. Not clear at this point if she's going to be able to talk to them, get something, get anything. But we're hopeful to get some information from those housekeepers after they've been interviewed and questioned by the Sheriff's Department up there in Big Bear Lake. And again, here in Angeles Oaks, awaiting a press conference as well. As we sort of sit and realize that this thing is over. And that after all the anxiety and all the searching and all the manpower, unprecedented level of manpower, and an unprecedented reward being offered, that $1 million reward that was being offered for information leading to the arrest and conviction of Chris Dorner, all of that in play here over the last several days. And to see it end like this is very gratifying, I know, for many in law enforcement. It's not how we thought it was going to end in terms of the manifesto that everybody's been reading online, but it has ended. Again, Mary Beth McDade with KTLA reporting that her sources at LAPD confirming Chris Dorner is dead.
Steve Moore, we want to bring you back into the conversation here and just talk about how Micah just mentioned unprecedented personnel, law enforcement personnel that were out on this manhunt. It's just really something we've never seen before.
No, I've been in Los Angeles since the mid-'80s, and I have never seen anything like this. Tim Lynn, I believe earlier on, said this is reminiscent of the Symbionese Liberation Army, but that wasn't a fugitive hunt that went on for 4 or 5 days. This is unprecedented.
And to see fugitives with the skills, the expertise, the knowledge that Chris Dorner had, typically they don't have that.
No, and that's the scary thing. There are a lot of trained people out there, and when one of them has an issue, then you've got a whole new ball game to deal with.
He believed he was railroaded by the LAPD and ultimately lost his job based on a review panel's finding that he made false statements. Looks like we're getting closer now to the press conference. That might just be a mic check, a member of the media. But
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, the person we're waiting for is in that white car. She's the spokesperson for San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department. Until she moves, I guess we'll sit tight here and wait with the live picture there in Angeles Oaks. But this was an officer who felt he'd been railroaded. He was ultimately fired by the LAPD. But he believed he was telling the truth and said that when the truth comes out, LAPD, I'll stop the killing.
Yeah, and what was interesting about that, and something that we didn't think was ever going to happen, because at first, when the manifesto came out, Chief Charlie Beck had said, no, we are going to stand by with what the Board of Review had decided in his firing, that he was lying, that they weren't going to retract that. And then just days afterwards, we have Chief Charlie Beck saying we're reopening the investigation into Christopher Dorner's claims about that excessive force claim that he made that had originally gotten him fired.
Did that surprise you? That they reopened the case?
It surprised me, yes. When somebody goes off the deep end like this and you in any way, shape, or form validate it, I mean, forget his claims for just a minute. The man's going out and killing innocent people. Thousands of people every day in America lose their jobs, and hundreds probably feel betrayed, wronged, but they don't go out shooting people. This was a person who had a pre-existing psychological condition. And so to shift it back, even if the claims are valid, to shift it back to saying, well, we'll look at it, it almost makes it, some people think, well, then it was justified, when really nothing justifies what he did. And I think in a way, I don't want to criticize him because it's a tough decision, but going back to review this, gives a little bit of a reward for what happened here. And frankly, even if your cause is just, when you start killing the children of innocent children of people you disagree with, I think you've waived your right to be heard.
Do you think, though, that it was part of the LAPD's way of luring in Dorner by saying that they were going to reopen the investigation? I mean, just a little bit of a nugget of bait, perhaps, that he might turn himself in?
I think at that point the die was cast with them. There was a lot of criticism of LAPD in light of this that was separate from what Dorner was doing, and I think maybe it was their attempt to stem some of the criticism of LAPD, because a lot of people, while they decried what Dorner did, they thought that maybe he was the victim of some kind of unjust proceeding. Whether or not it was true or not, some people believed it.
Well, the chief indicated from the beginning that this was about transparency and not in any way related to appeasing Dorner or even really engaging him in a conversation through the media, but more about transparency, and something that, you know, the LAPD has been criticized in the past for lacking.
Sure.
So, you know, perhaps it was an opportunity for him to, you know, to make a statement of transparency. I can't speak for him, but, you know, the decision was made. Some say maybe he should have just opened the file and not said, you know, we're going to review it. But now you're splitting semantics, and what's done is done. I think, you know, it was important for people to know the story for what it's worth, regardless of how it came out, whether the chief released it or you know, diligent reporting ultimately released the facts. But it was important to see. I mean, this is a story that involves so many people here in Southern California, virtually everyone affected in some way, particularly family of law enforcement and law enforcement officers themselves.
It affected me. The night before last, my wife was out for an evening with the wife of an LAPD lieutenant, and I can't help but tell you that I was thinking, is this a good idea? But I would have preferred, again, not criticizing, I'm glad that they are being transparent, but I would have preferred the transparency to be quieter and maybe bring in some journalists, some people who could verify that even if you're going to reinvestigate it transparently, quietly with journalists, so they can come forward later and say, we looked at it again, with the public.
And ironic you said that, because that's exactly what he wanted in his manifesto, and spoke to many journalists about that. In the meantime, we do now want to take, Steve, thank you, stay with us here on set, but we now want to go to the scene in Angeles Oaks, where Chip Yost is standing by awaiting this press conference from the San Bernardino Sheriff's Department, the lead agency on this case and this manhunt. Let's go over to him now. Chip.
Yeah, you're looking at all those microphones right now. We have several dozen journalists standing around here. We are up in Angeles Oaks here. If you know the area on the way up to Big Bear, we are outside the Country Store restaurant. This is as far as you can go right now. If you live in the area, this is as far as you can go as far as getting up here because of the situation ongoing up there, up the hill in Seven Oaks. However, what we can say just from observation alone is that things have cleared up there, at least from a safety standpoint. Before, we were many miles away from here. Before we got up this close, as we were driving up the road, we saw dozens of officers, law enforcement officers and their vehicles coming down the hill. The SWAT vehicles from the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, the San Bernardino Police Department, and the Riverside Police Department were among those coming down the hill. We can tell from the shots from Sky 5 HD that the threat at that cabin is over. Whether or not the person believed to be dead inside there, because it doesn't look like anyone would have survived that, but the person who may be dead inside there, all indications are it's Christopher Dorner. We're waiting for 100% confirmation from the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department. I just got an indication a moment ago as I was talking that Cindy Bachman, the spokesperson for the Sheriff's Department, may be coming out any moment. If you're looking at that shot of the microphones up there, she is in an SUV just about 7 feet behind those microphones. She's been in there on the phone for the last 40 minutes or so, trying to get confirmation of all these questions we've been asking her about this, mainly the question involving was it Christopher Dorner, but also also some of the questions about this whole situation today, how it transpired. Of course, these situations, as we know when we report them, the first facts we get or the first information we get don't turn out to be facts. They turn out to be a little different than we first heard. The situation's maybe not playing out exactly as we heard at the beginning of this story. So she's trying to get confirmation so we can get a much more clear picture of what exactly happened. You can see the crowd kind of dividing here. It looks like Cindy Bachman is going to make her way, maybe a false alarm. She's putting on a jacket, but it looks like she is going to come up here and hopefully clarify a lot of these questions that we have had throughout the day. A lot of the information we have had has come in bits and pieces and involved kind of putting pieces of that puzzle together as we go from different law enforcement agencies involved in this. Remember, we have a number of different law enforcement agencies involved in this, from Irvine PD to LAPD to San Bernardino now, and here comes, well, she is not coming up to the mics as we thought. Cindy, do you know about how long it'll be? Cindy. She's just going to the restroom, it appears, at this point. So she is, looks like we're going to have to wait a little longer. But like I said, we're hoping to get kind of the whole picture, a whole clear picture together so we don't have all these bits and pieces scattered about and you know, kind of confirm what we think we already know. We'll send it back to you guys.
All right, Chip Yost for San Angeles Oaks. Chip, thank you. And we wait, and we continue to wait. And this is live reporting as it goes. And we continue to digest what we do know and try and piece together bits of information that are coming from law enforcement sources. Again, the two housekeepers up in Big Bear that were held hostage, they said, by Dorner for a time today. We don't know how long they were held. We don't know if that happened today, if that happened two days ago, 3 days ago. We just don't know. But we do know that they're talking to law enforcement late today and that we're trying to get in touch with them. We're waiting outside the Sheriff's Department headquarters there in Big Bear to try and get a little bit more information. As Christina Pascucci was reporting, the two were zip-tied, their car was stolen, and at some point that car became disabled and another vehicle was carjacked at gunpoint by a man matching the description of Chris Dorner. All of that happening in Big Bear. Then officers were put on alert, and a short while later, they found the vehicle description and the suspect description on the 38 near Seven Oaks, which is very near Angeles Oaks. And that's where the story began to end late today.
Real life drama for sure that, you know, we've been watching very, very closely. And as Chip Yost said, of course, involving many different agencies from Irvine Police, San Bernardino, Riverside, even San Diego, and the LAPD, of course, at the very center of this all. And that's where we want to go right now, to downtown Los Angeles, where Chris Wolf has been standing by and gathering information for us from LAPD headquarters. He's live for us with more information. Chris?
Okay. Yeah, Cher, Mike, I think we are here now live, I would imagine. We are going to have a press conference here at LAPD headquarters at 9 o'clock tonight. We will be here to hear what the LAPD has to say. You know, the word that a source within the LAPD, I think we're going to something else right now. We'll be back in just a few.
All right, it seems that we're going to go to that press conference now. Okay, go ahead.
Believe that. Okay, so yeah, I was going to say that there will be a press conference here at LAPD headquarters at 9 o'clock tonight. Given this information that's coming out now that a source here at the LAPD is confirming that Christopher Dorner is dead, that's not exactly surprising given the mayor's comments earlier. If you read between the lines, he seemed extremely at ease, resolved that all of this is over. He was probably not letting on as much as he truly knew. But what I'm hearing is that there has to be some forensic testing yet to be done before a final official confirmation. But again, who knows? All of this remains to be seen. In this kind of a breaking, developing situation, details, information, all of this is fluid, so we expect things to change throughout the course of the day as more information becomes available, as we get more information from different sources, San Bernardino, Los Angeles. But that is what we're hearing right now, that apparently forensic testing has to be done before final confirmation, and the official public word will be coming from the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, which is currently the lead investigative agency in all of this. There has been a massive effort, as we all know, over the last week in this manhunt for Christopher Dorner. A multi-agency task force was formed with the FBI, U.S. Marshal Service, as well as several local law enforcement agencies. At one point, a U.S. Marshal, a member of the U.S. Marshal Service, said that he believed in all of his experience with his investigative results that Christopher Dorner had fled the country, had crossed the border into Mexico, that some of his personal belongings, including a driver's license and some credit cards and other personal items, were found at the border. So he truly believed that Dorner had fled to Mexico. But now we all know that was not the case. Dorner was up in the Big Bear area this whole time, apparently, for the last several days. It seems that reports of that broken axle on his pickup truck, the one that was burned and abandoned in Big Bear, was probably unintentional. It had unexpectedly stranded him in the area. He had to change his plan. He was stuck there. That truck, that burned out truck, was not just a decoy to throw investigators off. It appears that was unplanned, and he was stuck there, and he had to adapt. And apparently he held those housekeepers hostage, was taking refuge in that cabin, in that home with them for several days, and then at some point stole his truck, which was spotted and led to this development. All of this, the shootout, the apparent death of Christopher Dorner, and that fiery end in that cabin up in the Big Bear area today. So we are waiting to hear more from the LAPD brass in about an hour and a half. For now, we will continue to watch and wait, see what happens out here at LAPD headquarters. Reporting live in downtown Los Angeles. Back to you guys.
Okay, Chris Wolf for us at LAPD headquarters. Thank you. And this just in from the Press Enterprise, the Riverside Press Enterprise, reporting that Riverside Police Chief Sergio Diaz says Dorner was in the cabin and is dead. Now, a second source confirming that from the Press Enterprise, reporting that Riverside Police Chief Sergio Diaz says Dorner was in the cabin and is dead.
We're just about a minute and a half away from this press conference where we will get that third confirmation on camera from Cynthia Bachman from the San Bernardino Sheriff's Department. Again, awaiting for this press conference to begin up in Angeles Oaks, very close to where the end of this possible end of this manhunt. It came to a fiery end, as we said, and we saw through Sky 5.
Not before another tragic turn, though. In the middle of the afternoon, two San Bernardino County Sheriff's deputies engaged in a gun battle with Chris Dorner. One of them shot and killed. The other shot and wounded and is now in surgery being treated at Loma Linda University Medical Center. So that adds to the death toll that has already been too much to bear for so many here in Southern California. Chris Dorner allegedly going on a rampage beginning a week ago Sunday, killing a young engaged couple in Irvine, and then moving on to Riverside, where he allegedly shot and killed an officer, and then moving on to the mountains of San Bernardino County, where his truck was found burning. And late today, after several days of no new sightings, no new developments in the whereabouts of Chris Dorner, a sighting and another firefight with San Bernardino County Sheriff's deputies, and what we believe now is the end of this manhunt with the death of Chris Dorner.
Alongside Micah Ullman, I'm Cher Calvin. We continue to follow this breaking news on KTLA.com, where we are streaming what you're looking at right now live. Go there for more information, and we'll see you at 10.
The world will break your heart 10 ways to Sunday, that's guaranteed. And I can't begin to explain that, or the craziness inside myself and everybody else, but guess what? Sunday's my favorite day again. I think of everything everyone did for me, and I feel like a very lucky guy.
This is what I learned in the hospital. You have to do everything you can. You have to work your hardest. And if you do, if you stay positive, you have a shot at a silver lining. Silver Linings is an authentic story and about an authentic group of people told with such humor and emotion.
Hey!
Oh, what the hell?
I just want us to be friends.
So how did you lose your job?
By having sex with everybody in the office.
Everybody?
I was very depressed after Tommy died.
We don't have to talk about it.
Thanks.
How many were there?
It's a nice blend of what the real is and the fantasy, and, and it all comes together.
What are you so up about?
Very happy.
I'm happy.
One of the reasons I think Silver Linings Playbook is one of the most compelling movies I've ever seen in my life is because it takes mental health and it makes it accessible.
The big question is, what are you going to do with yourself?
When there's love and acceptance, anything can work. There can be darkness, and then there can be a silver lining.
It was about 5 years ago that I got a meeting with Sidney Pollack, who had a book he wanted to show me, and the book was called Silver Linings Playbook by Matthew Quick.
My inspiration for the novel Silver Linings Playbook was that I wanted people, when they read the book, who might be feeling alone to feel less alone. You know, Pat is somebody who is trying to get his life together. He's in a low point in his life. What the? For me, I was really somebody who was struggling with depression. I was transforming myself. You know, I was a high school English teacher and I was trying to become a writer. It was a really tough time for me and I needed to believe in silver linings. So I wrote this book to convince myself that silver linings were possible.
All right, I'm better. I just want to let you know I'm better now. Right. Okay, I'm better. Yeah. I feel good. I feel so good. Look at my eyes. Look at my eyes. Look how clear they are.
Don't hug me.
I'm not a complainer anymore. I'm a positive guy, okay?
You just have to give it some time.
Yes.
You know, a lot went down. People will get over it. It'll be all good. It'll work out.
Yes, it will be. Yeah. I'm going to take that as a silver development, Nancy. The silver development, that's a silver lining.
I immediately was excited about the book because I've been looking around for a story for years and hoping to come up with a story that would allow me to tell some of the experiences I had had with my son, my oldest son, who had struggled with many of these emotional mood disorders. It had been the hardest thing I'd ever seen in my life and the most difficult thing I ever dealt with that forced everybody in the family to grow their heart many times.
Can you talk about something that you did before or after?
Yeah, about a week before the incident, I called the cops, and I told them that my wife and the history guy were plotting against me by embezzling money from the local high school, which wasn't true. It was a delusion. And we later found out from the hospital that's because I'm,
Undiagnosed bipolar.
Yeah. With mood swings and weird thinking brought on by severe stress, which rarely happens, thank God.
You know, I've had a son who has mood disorder, which, you know, means someone can have moods that can pull them down the drain and send the home into a tornado in moments. And a son who, at times when he was 10, 11 years old, told me life was so hard he didn't know if he wanted to keep going, you know? So I would do anything for him. And so when I came to this, I wanted a story that would really help him feel like he's part of the world. And this story just seemed like the right story because it's not precious, it was human, it was relatable, it was the people like in The Fighter, it was a community, and it just had romance and it had all this enchantment. Because without the enchantment, you can't make it through the hard times.
Listen, Patrick, she's gone. She's not around anymore. Nikki left.
What are you doing, Dad? Excelsior. Excelsior.
What does that mean?
Excelsior. It means, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna take all this negativity and I'm gonna use it as fuel and I'm gonna find a silver lining. That's what I'm gonna do.
Did you feel a greater responsibility, Bob, doing a film that David had so much personally invested in?
Oh, of course. I mean, I understand what but I don't like to get emotional, but I know exactly what he goes through.
You understood some of the same experiences that he's had with his son.
You just up. I don't know what that is. Are you taking the proper dosage of your medication?
Am I taking the right dose? Of course I am.
Okay. Taking a little bit too many or something? Or...
No, if I was taking that, I'd be on the floor, Dad.
Silver Linings Playbook is a very practical portrayal, very realistic portrayal of what happens every single day in communities all over this great country, where people are struggling with depression and anxiety and sometimes more severe challenges, like Bradley Cooper had in the movie, and yet they try to make sense of it.
Don't drink too much, don't hit anybody, you'll be fine.
Yeah, I'm solid.
Here we go. Back round! Action!
Here's my little brother, Pat.
Hey, how you doing, Pat? Hey, how you
Yeah,
doing?
boom. You got to go right to
right
He just got out.
So, Pat, what's this I hear about you just getting out?
Out of the loony bin. The loony bin.
Loony bin.
Yeah, from the loony bin. Guys, I talked to you about that already. I told you. It's all right.
I receive emails every single day from people who have seen the film, and they're saying to me, just thank you. Thank you for verbalizing this. Thank you for talking about mental health. Thank you for giving us a vehicle to discuss these things.
I could identify with Patrick, not just because I share the name Patrick, but I share the same illness as Patrick portrayed, bipolar disorder. And I know just what he was going through.
We so often get caught in this state of negativity, and it's a poison like nothing else.
I was a very public figure in Congress, but I was also a consumer of mental health. So I really knew this world, and the thing I knew best about this world is that there was silence where there should be a voice. There were faceless people when there should be faces and voices amongst us who are involved. And that's been the biggest challenge to the ends that I think we all want, and that's equal treatment. But we're never going to get there if we don't have people who are willing to be public and to raise their voice.
Feels to me like you want to hide my wedding video.
No one's hiding anything
You
from
think I
you.
can't handle it?
Please stop yelling.
I'm not yelling, Mom. I'm just frustrated because I should have my wedding videos.
Pat, you're gonna wake everybody
I looked over there. I already looked all over there.
somewhere.
I can't get up. I'm not
calm
here.
down, Pat.
I'm not calming down. I don't give a who here. I'm not calming down. Anybody can wake up. I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not ashamed of it. Let the whole neighborhood wake up. I don't care.
The best possible feedback that we've gotten, and it happens every single screening, is that thank you for telling a story in such a way that these characters identify themselves in such a way that we can relate to them, rather than just sort of putting them in a box.
What Silver Linings Playbook did was it gave a face and a voice, and in a powerful medium.
You just do your best. You have no choice.
That's not true at all.
You just can't.
Ronnie.
I hope you're okay with Veronica's sister coming over. You okay with that?
Who?
Veronica's sister.
Tiffany and Tommy?
Yeah, I mean, just Tiffany.
What happened to Tommy?
He died.
Tommy died?
Cops die.
How'd he die?
Please, don't bring it up.
No, how did he die?
I just said.
How did who die?
Hey, Tiffany. This is Pat. Pat. Sister-in-law Tiffany.
You look nice.
Thank you.
I'm not flirting with you.
Oh, I didn't think you were.
I just see that you made an effort, and I'm going to be better with my wife. I'm working on that. I want to acknowledge her beauty. I never used to do that. I'm going to do that now, because we're going to be better than ever, Nikki. Just practicing. How'd Tommy die?
Tiffany has also moved home after the death of her husband, and that kind of